Right. Just wait for people to join up real quick. All right. Can everyone hear me all right? Hoping what happened last time doesn't happen again. Everyone that can hear me, press 1. All right. On that note, let us begin. Today where do we even begin to talk about what has been taking place in these last few couple of weeks? Oh man. Kenosha's getting torn up right now. Black Lives Matter protests. Ain't I black man and light skin motivation deleted? It's just a lot to unpack tonight. But I thought today would be a good day to talk about something that we haven't really heard about. Really, this is something that a lot of people have been scared to address. And that is, what are light skinned people really getting from these Black Lives Matter protests? Oh, I see somebody got a question. Oh, okay. Yeah, my bright galaxy, I'm doing fine. Just trying to keep a clear head in all this. Oh, how's it going, Golden Artist? Danielle Taylor asks, where do light brown skins fall under? Well, that really depends feature-wise, honestly. But a lot of times, light brown skins usually fall in the light skin category a lot, too. Crabnet says, lost my home in the hurricane. See, it's like, there's just a lot of stuff going on right now. Hurricanes, protesting, corona. It's like, we haven't really got much of a break this year, honestly. We still got like 3 months of this year left. It's just crazy. Oh, how's it going, Selector John? You asked, what category do I fall into? Well, judging by your picture, you obviously look light skinned to me. Yeah, crap, man. Are you all right? Because those hurricanes aren't really much of a joke right now. I would love to hear where they've said that before, because judging by your picture, I don't really see it. Honestly, you look light skinned to me. But anyway, like I was saying, what are light skinned people really honestly getting from these Black Lives Matter protests? Honest. What? Really, what are these protests really accomplishing at all? Nothing. We're not getting anything from any of this. We're the same people that they claim are so privileged, but now all of a sudden they want us to be in the front lines marching for their cause. Because, let's be honest, most, if not all, of these cases of people that are protesting usually Nine times out of 10, most of the people are criminals. That's something that nobody wants to admit. But I've been spending all day because honestly, when is the last time anyone has actually protested for anybody who genuinely was innocent? Somebody that didn't do anything that led to it and they just continue to harass them. Is there even a case of that? But I'll tell you what, today we're about to talk about a whole lot of sad stories that I have written down of light-skinned kids and light-skinned older people that have been killed in acts of senseless violence by a group that I'm sure you all know. This group has been the main group that has been killing us for as long as we can remember and continue to do so to this day and refuse to acknowledge. I'm sure we all know who that group is. Like, I'm sure we all know this whole story with this Malia Davis. A young, I think she was like 4 years old, killed by Pookie. You know, Pookie and Ray Ray. Dysfunction and destruction is their middle name. It's like, how many young kids are just dying? Like senseless acts of violence. And Black Lives Matter, and none of these people for this matter bat an eye to it. But the second a criminal gets caught in the act and shot, we're supposed to just drop everything down, go to the streets, loot, and destroy things. Just for a criminal. I'm getting sick of it. I am getting sick of this hypocrisy. It's about time that somebody just drew a line in the sand and just said enough. Enough. Nobody's getting anything from any of this. Nobody. Truth Actor says light-skinned men be going hard for the movement. This Black Lives Matter movement really has nothing to do with light-skinned people. No, it doesn't. That's the thing. It really doesn't. They just want us to be in the front lines just doing everything that they should be doing. But as always, light-skinned people just fall in line with it. In fact, it seems like to me that once again, as always, light-skinned people seem to be the ones screaming the loudest about this whole situation. What? What are you getting? And again, I say, Black Lives Matter only cares about criminals. They don't bat an eye to all of these young black kids that are getting shot in senseless acts of violence. And in a lot of cases, they don't even do it. They just be sitting there just having fun in a kid's place. Just imagine that. They're just sitting around just enjoying life as a young kid, and a bullet shot by you know who kills them. But oh, I see we got a troll here. Light bright galaxy said not even a cookie because we still get attacked. You know that. Once this stuff dies down, they're going to go right back to what they were doing before. Crying about colorism or white supremacy, and they see you guys as better. Just enough, man. Enough. What more? At this point, I really don't know how much longer this is going to go. especially when you just look at how widespread this whole community thing is just going. Like, if you look, most of these young kids are getting killed by Pookies and Ray Rays. What is this whole Black Lives Matter movement? Who are these people protesting for? Pookies and Ray Rays. They're basically protesting for the same guys that are destroying the quote unquote community. Well, you know what, Ozell? You have not really said anything at all. You just said my channel's stupid. So if that's exposing, I would love to see what you're exposing is, because all you've done this whole time is project. So please just stop it. But again, protesting for the main people that are destroying the community. This DK Phantom says, I'm a light-skinned black dude, but black folks look at me like I'm a foreigner. So I don't attach myself to the black community. Well, you know, what, DK Phantom, sooner or later that's going to happen a lot more. Because honestly, if we want to be 100% honest, what are light-skinned men really getting? What, in fact, what do light-skinned people really get, period, from all of this? Like, this list of, these are young babies that are getting killed by the dysfunction of Blackistan. And no one is saying anything about it. It's just basically just one little news coverage, and then they're just swiped to the side. But yet somebody like George Floyd is supposed to be some black civil rights icon. It's just crazy. I really don't know what else to say about this, except enough. But if anyone wants to join the stream, there's the link in the description. But today we're about to talk about, highlight all of the light on light crime, you could say, in the black community. Like all the light-skinned people we know in the news that's just getting killed. And just senseless acts of violence. And it's happening every day. It's getting worse. And it's only going to get worse. As long as people keep protesting and crowning these guys like they're civil rights icons. It's just, I don't really know what else we can do at this point. And the funny thing is, if you go mainstream and talk about this, you're just out. Because I've seen this guy, he's Herschel, like, as we all know, Herschel Walker is like an NFL player. And his son, he's basically been saying the same thing. And people have been dragging him through the mud for it. It's one thing to see a quote unquote black person saying it, but when they see a light-skinned black person saying it, oh, you're just out. There's just no room for negotiation. You're just out of there. Either you conform to the status quo or you're gone. And my question is, how long, what's the point? How long are we just going to keep sitting around and just doing this? Either you agree with their little victimhood or you're out. It's just crazy, man. Like this story of this, like some of these stories were just really touching. Like this Sanaya Nicholson. She was basically shot and killed, a 9-year-old girl. Like crossfire. It's like these guys, they're just killing innocent little kids. And it's not like just something that just happened. It's just an everyday thing. They're just terrorizing people, and no one is calling them out for it. But the irony is that these same guys get killed by the cops. All of a sudden, they're civil rights icons. This dysfunction has just hit a new role. It just won't stop. It's not going to stop. DK Phantom said this, why I say light-skinned blacks and non-blacks, biracials, and multiracials need to form a community together. Well, that sounds good, but I think it's becoming more increasingly obvious that there's just certain groups of people that would never allow something like that to happen. They would light that community on fire, or what they did before, shame them to hell and back until they get shamed back in line. Same thing with what they did with the Creole groups. So as good as that sounds, I don't know how that's going to happen. Light Bright Galaxy asks, where are the riots for the babies, children, and elderly shot in their own neighborhoods? There isn't any. Because like I said, they only protest for the people that usually 9 times out of 10 are doing something they have no business doing. And the irony is, if we look, George Floyd was basically robbing a pregnant woman. A pregnant woman. Let that sink in for a second. He stuck a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach with 3 other guys. The other guys took all of her stuff and he ran away. And this isn't the first thing this guy has like a rap sheet so long that the whole reason that he was in Indianapolis in the first place is because he was running from his warrants. And even when he died, he was still caught in the art of mischief. Fake $20 bills. And this guy is supposed to be a poster child for the civil rights? Has this what we've came to? These guys, if this was any other decade, people wouldn't spit in these guys' directions in civil rights. But now, we got people like George Floyd that are just running around. Let's see. People saying Daniel Taylor. We don't need to be with dark-skinned people when they clown us all the time, and we don't need to be begging. No, not at all. Look, they at this point, light-skinned men should be used to clowning, because I'll be the first to admit these jokes are just getting old. They're just getting old and corny at this point. People think it's just so funny. I've just come to the point now where I think maybe we should all just start posting memes. Since it's free game to just bash us, maybe we should just start cracking jokes about everyone else. Let's start these cartoons. Dark skin be like, let's see how that works out for us. Dark skin be like, or dark skin they could be like, let's see how that would work. I know they probably would cry to the sons, we're all black. But they sure don't seem to cry about that when we get clowned. Because I honestly, I'm pretty good at like editing stuff, so I could easily do it. But I don't think I'm ready for the backlash that would come with something like that, or blacklash, as we call it. The backlash for something like that would drive me to the point that I'd just be ready to scream at everybody. Selector Jock asks, where are the memes bashing dark skinned men? See memes bashing light skinned men all the time, but not memes bashing dark skinned. Well, that's because you can't bash dark skinned men. If you went online and bashed dark skinned, like anything with dark skinned men, for one, you would probably get blocked for starters. And two, people would shame you. And that's the thing. There is no sort of backlash when we get bashed. But when they get bashed, it's the whole community hops on it. Yeah, we're not. But I think sooner or later, I think it's just going to get to a point where we are going to have to just. At this point, I think it's just time to be a little petty with this whole thing. Like they always say, sometimes you just have to fight fire with fire. I guess just be ready for the Blackistan knives and arrows that you're going to get from doing it. Light Bright Galaxy says dark skinned black women don't want to admit growing. They didn't want dark skinned black boys. You know, Light Bright Galaxy, the irony in that whole situation is a lot of what we're seeing now actually is because of that basic fact. Like before, in the supposed 80s, when this whole light skinned men were in thing was happening, dark skinned men were jealous of light skinned men. And they took it upon themselves to bash and clown light skinned men to the point where now people don't look at light skinned men the same way they did in the supposed 80s. And now that we've reached this point where we are now the roles have kind of switched. And now that dark skin is the supposed in thing, light skinned men really aren't allowed to speak out about it, because if you do, you get clowned to hell and back. And you get thrown in with the colors dark skinned women thing narrated. Yeah, that's the thing. Light skinned folks voted most attractive, so who's really losing? Yeah, that's the thing. They just really don't. They don't like to see us getting celebrated like that. When they get something, we're supposed to just scream and laugh. Yay, they got it! Woo! But with us, is they just got it because of their skin complexion. Just light skin privilege. Just like this whole Steven Jackson, Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. is like a basketball player that was speaking out about this whole Black Lives Matter situation. And the first thing that came out of dark-skinned Steven Jackson's mouth was sit your privileged self down. As if he is like some universal spokesperson for what certain people can talk about. And there's a lot of people like him. It's like I said before, if you are agreeing with their narrative, you're fine. But when you say something that doesn't align with what they're saying, then that's the first thing that comes out of their mouth. That whole privilege word. They just love throwing that word around. Privilege. Privilege, privilege, privilege. But nobody is more privileged than they are, because they get to run around and claim that everybody else is privileged. I'm just sick of it. Danielle Taylor says it's not fair when it's always dark skinned, light skinned, big and women. Well, I guess so, but I really think it's coming to a point where you aren't really going to be able to stop couplings like that, especially nowadays with this whole social justice generation that we're in now. But the Curry family is like my favorite example of what I be saying. How people are just constantly calling them like some kind of secret society just because of the fact that it's a light skinned family. And that's why I just love seeing it. I love seeing it. I just love seeing how they cry about it. Because it basically goes to show you what this whole situation is really about. And T215 says if we was to make memes about dark skin men, the whole community would come for it. Oh, you know what they would. That's why a lot of cases, a lot of us don't. Because I remember, I'm sure you guys know, G. Lowry, he's always making jokes about, he's always making jokes about dark skinned dudes. And they be coming for him for it. Saying that he's upset, the usual talking points, he's obsessed with dark skinned men, he's a hater, blah, 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 all that. But the second they clown us, is oh, it's just a joke. It's just a joke. It doesn't matter. We're all black. It's just a joke. But it's not a joke when it comes to them. It's just crazy. They clown them. Okay, I see you're obsessed with black people. I'm not obsessed with black people. I'm just calling this stuff for what it is. Everybody else, you said y'all are the same ones that say that every time just talking about the dysfunction. Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm calling out the dysfunction for what it is. And obviously, you don't seem to like it, do you? Well, you don't have to be in the stream. What's your name? Israelite. If you don't like it. But you see, this is people like him are exactly what I be talking about. Uh, Yo, Brown and Beige. Did you see? I don't know what interview it was, but the dark dude said dark dudes was making biracial boys and keeping them put in the NBA. No, I didn't see that, but I would love to see who said that. Because truth be told, this is probably. I know this may sound a little weird, but I think in a lot of cases with a lot of these athletes, I think a lot of them would like to have what I would call like some kind of monopoly on the light skin phenotype, if that makes any sense. It just, I noticed that. And I heard it from like somebody like Sarge Willie Pete that said that, oh, he had Eurocentric cows. It's like they always have like some kind of, like Shaq and the whole Steph Curry situation, calling himself the black Steph Curry. Now, if we look at Shaq's dating history, Shaq has been on practically every last woman he's dated has been like. But it's always the ones like him that got the most stuff to say. He's dated nothing but light skinned women, but feels some kind of way about Steph Curry. And he's not the first one that's came out and said something about Curry. Draymond Green. It's like there's just plenty of players that have something to say about Steph Curry. They was talking about why people hate Curry. He said it's because he light skinned changing the game. The dark dude admitted that they would tell them not to bring light skinned men in the NBA. Well, the irony in that whole situation is they're the ones that are bringing light skinned men in the NBA. How many light skinned men in the NBA really have black mothers? Let's be honest. So, this whole quote unquote erasure that they're talking about is their own fault because most of these light skinned men have black dads. So, whose fault is it really that light skinned men are coming in the NBA? It's them. They're the ones that's creating all these biracial men. If they feel that way, why do they keep making biracial men? But see, this is exactly what I be talking about with a lot of these guys. It's like they always got some kind of slick stuff to say about light skinned men, but they're creating light skinned men. Like, what sense does that make? Make that make sense. Like, honestly, make it make sense. Like, this is just some of the BS and hypocrisy that we're dealing with right now. But Curry also had some familiar connections that helped him get on too. I think the thing with Curry is Curry really represents everything that the black community isn't, honestly. He's not really a panderer per se. Well, at least not right now. He doesn't really appeal to he definitely doesn't appeal to the colorism aspect of things. In fact, it's the exact opposite. And two, he actually came from a stable family. And you know how stable families are viewed in Blackistan. Oh boy. Oh, you become public enemy number one when you have your mom and dad in the house. The first community I've ever seen where if you have a traditional household, it's a bad thing. A bad thing. Any other community, you're applauded, but in the black community, you know what you're viewed as? That whole privilege word. They just love throwing that word around. Privilege, privilege, privilege. That privilege word is their favorite word. They made fun of Steph's braids. Yeah, but I bet you if Steph hopped in their DMs right now. Because where I'm from, I see a lot of light skinned men with dark skinned women. And to be honest with you, they don't really be that attractive, honestly. They just they just look like your typical hood booger, you would say. Just not really anything that you're hopping through hoops to get. But that's just something else that we don't really hear. Is like these same people that cry colorism are just always talking, always ready to have a baby by a light skinned person, and then cry colorism in the same instance. But this stuff is just going completely out of the water. You don't see anything. That's why you're crying. Still here, sir. I see a lot of things. The dysfunction of this community has went on long enough, and I think it's time that somebody just called it out for what it is. So you can stay here and troll all you want, but it's not going to do anything. I ain't gonna lie, I'd be rejecting those self-hating black women left and right, singing weird. Yeah, they're real weird. Look, I don't really. They always say that that's a privilege, but to be honest with you, What privilege is there being with a woman that whole basis of being with you is because of a fetish for your features? Like, I always hear that argument saying that that's a privilege. That's not a privilege. What privilege is there being fetishized by somebody? What does fetishizing do? Fetishizing, that's just not a privilege. Anyone who's saying that that's a privilege just needs to sit down. Just sit down. Sit down. That's not a privilege. It never will be. I'm sorry. And I'm sure, I know that's probably going to really unearth a lot of people, but it's just the truth. Nobody wants to be with a person that's just fetishizing them for their skin and features. I'm sure there's probably some people that do, but they're crazy. I'll just say that. I'm light skinned, but I'm not really attracted to dark skinned women. The closest I get to a woman that's darker than me is light brown or brown. Oh, don't, you probably shouldn't go out and say that because they will light you on fire for saying something like that. The colorism crybaby constituency, as they call it. But anyway, okay, I'm getting a little off topic here. But today, once again, we're about to talk about all of these stories of just all these light skinned people that are just caught up in senseless acts of violence. And there's a lot of, for one, we have this Sanaya Nichols. I'm trying to see if I can post a link up for I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. Let me see here. Uh, Cleveland man pleads guilty in 2018 shootout that killed 9-year-old girl. Okay, I'm trying to see if I can get the show up on my screen. Let me see. What's this button do? Okay, well, I can't really see it, but I'll just throw these names out here and just read you guys a story. Sanaya Nicholson was a 9-year-old girl that was fatally shot in 2018. I think his name is C. Matazia Andrews, pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter, and she was killed by an iron bullet, and she sat in her mother's car. Andrews is one of 7 adults and teenagers charged in connection with the shootout, and he is only facing 20 years for killing a 9-year-old girl. But again, these are the same guys that Black Lives Matter would probably be protesting for if he were to get shot or harmed by the police. The same guys that are killing innocent little kids left and right. 20 years. He should at least be facing 50, but 20, he'll be out again, probably doing the same thing. The same exact thing. But these are the guys that are looked at as civil rights icons when the police harms them. And that's not the only story. we have another one. Her name is Savannah Adams. And this story is even worse. Savannah Adams is basically, she was basically found and dead by a convicted felon. Notice the convicted felon. Once again, a Georgian man is accused of killing a 5-year-old girl who was dead in her bed. He fled the home, but officers found and interviewed him the following day. And they found a firearm in his vehicle, and he possessed it, but was a convicted felon. Reports indicated that Gathright was released from prison in August after serving a sentence for a rash of robberies. And he was a part of a group that punched a woman in her face and stole her car. See, it's like these guys are just terrorizing people. Just when did why do people look up to these guys? Like, why are these guys always the ones that are looked up to in the community? Like, they're just destroying the community. Let me see. What do you guys say? So what are you doing? Exactly what I'm doing now, calling it out for what it is. Because see, this is the thing. This is like the number one question people always seem to have. What are you doing? What does it look like I'm doing? Calling it out. You know what? Is it like you? I'm really giving you a chance, bro, but you're starting to really get on my nerves here. Asking the same question when I just answered it is not going to help you. I'm doing exactly what I should be doing, calling it out. If you don't like I said, if you don't like it, you don't have to be here. That's all you have to do. Because I'm not going to change my message. I'm not going to. So you're just wasting your time. Let me see. So does anybody else want to chime in on this subject? Because I'm sure there's probably some more stories that I myself probably haven't even looked at. Because I got a lot more of them here that we're about to talk about tonight. There's like a whole list. And this is just some of the innocent people that have been killed. It's just senseless acts of violence. These people just won't stop. And the crazy thing is people just keep making excuses for this. Like, Chicago is like an epicenter for like gang and drug activity. But once these same criminals get killed by a cop, all of a sudden, they're civil rights icons. Civil rights icons, for real? Convicted felons, rapists, robbers. What the next one will probably be a killer. I wouldn't be surprised one bit. And the only time you really hear about like when a biracial baby gets killed is when they're killed by like a white person. But if they're killed by a black person, it just instantly just goes to the, well, that's an L for the community. That's just how it is in the black community. You know, we're supposed to just be protesting for the one in every 100 black men that get killed by the cops. Those are the only people we're supposed to be protesting for. Ooh. Oh shoot, I want the wrong person. Hold on. Excuse me for a second. I just blocked the wrong person. Let me see how can I do this? Let me see. I did not mean to do that. See, I probably do need to promote some mods because it's hard to talk and monitor what's going on in the chat at the same time. I just blocked the wrong person here. I'm still used to this whole. So, quick question: does anybody know how to unblock somebody? Has anybody in here been a mod before? Anybody? Wow, I can't believe it. I just accidentally blocked this person. I don't. Oh man, my boy's here. I'm confused. Beige crayons. Yeah, man, beige crayons here, and we got our butter biscuit brigade hats going here. What's up? I'm confused. So now, see, I'm confused would be the first one to tell you, since he's in Chicago. Like these whole Black Lives Matter situations with all these people that are protesting. He'll be the first to tell you how this whole gang violence thing has worked out for everybody. These guys, it's like 9 times out of 10, they don't even shoot the guy that they're looking for. Usually they just end up shooting just an innocent kid that could be just doing little stuff like playing outside, sitting, doing their homework and everything. But the second they get killed by the cops, they're civil rights icons. It's just crazy, man. I don't get it. I just love how people are just showing their true colors. The true colors of Blackistan continues to be shown all day, every day. A 9-year-old girl got shot 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's the same thing where I live. Like these guys, like I remember, it was like right at the beginning of the year, I was just sitting, just sleeping on my couch, and next thing I know, somebody just comes and just shoots like practically 5 or 7 bullets. I'm half sleeping. I'm just running across the room, getting down, crawling my way upstairs because my house has 2 levels. But that's just how it is in the supposed hood. You could be just sitting there minding your own business, and then somebody just comes and just shoots something up. And there's people that are just getting caught in the crossfire. You could be just minding your own business. Like that, it just makes you think about how messed up that is. You're just sitting, just enjoying your life, and then next thing you know, somebody goes and just hit you with a bullet. A bullet. What kind of app is it, Golden Artist? Because I don't really use the whole Google apps or anything. Hmm. Oh yeah, I'll join, but I don't really have a Reddit account. I have to make one. All I really have is the YouTube channel and this Twitter. Other than that, that's really all I got. But I'll join. I probably have to create one like right after this stream. Selector Josh says, believe me, this is not an American thing only. I'm from Trinity, and where I'm from, people would literally riot over a drug lord being killed by the cops, but not an innocent kid being killed by strays. Yeah, see, that's exactly what I'd be talking about. How about a live interview at some point? Well, that depends on what kind of interview we're talking about, but I'm always open. Look, I'm ready to really start building this channel. And there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to be doing down the line. Interviews, live chats. We might even like start having like special guests. The sky's the limit for what we're going to do on this channel. Yeah, Selector John, they always glorify the Pookies. Like Pookie and Ray Ray is viewed basically as the guy calling the shots in the black community. If you don't agree with what they say, if you don't like act like a certain way that's kind of similar to them, then you're an outsider. That's basically how the black community has gone. If you're not a Pookie, then you fall in the educated, you know what category. And those guys are viewed basically as the second fiddles. Pookie and Ray Ray call the shots. But if anybody wants to join this stream, you guys will be more than glad to. I'll post the link one more time. Hold on. Somebody's asking a question. So Daniel Taylor asks, I like hearing colorism from the light skin perspective, but why are brown skins always forgotten? I think it could be because brown skins don't really fit like in either category. And truth be told, I think the biggest reason is because the brown skins are actually the silent majority in the black community. When you think about it, most of the people that you see in the black community are brown skinned. And I think a lot of it is because of the whole dating practices that the black community has. Like most of the time, it's usually really dark people with really light people. And usually, when you mix those two together, you usually come out with like different, varying shades of brown skin. And that has been happening for decades upon decades. to the point where now brown skins are the silent majority in the black community. So, truth be told, the reason why you probably don't hear about it from the brown skin perspective is because there's too many brown skins to really, like, both dark skinned and light skinned people really can't say anything about brown skins because that's the majority at this point. Brown skins are pretty much just not too dark, not too light, just the perfect blend. Yeah, that's why you don't really hear about brown skins because everybody, most if not all people in the black community are brown skinned now. I believe eventually, now brown skins, from what I've seen, brown skins usually are with other brown skins. There is who is oh, that's all right. We got our first guest. How's it going, Ash?
Hi, it's going well. I clicked the link not necessarily expecting to be featured, but I posed the question in the chat, how about a live interview at some time? So perfect opportunity. I just want to say that this is just an amazing channel, and I know that it's new. I know that it's fresh. Um, I love that your content is layered with um, with really tempered perspective. It's not like vigilante or vitriol, that you're spewing through your commentary, but you're just noting um, the very obvious difference in the way that the Black community responds to lighter skinned Black people, um, and what that looks like in context of the Black Lives Matter, and as you've been reporting in prior cases where light skinned people have been the victim, and the outcry from the community is minimal. So I just want to, commend you for even, having the courage to do this. I mentioned in the chat that I'm working on a project myself that will likely be a documentary. And as I continue to follow you,
Oh,
I want to share that. So, yeah. So this is just, another light skinned sister of yours in the trenches. I am light skinned Black. I have two light skinned Black parents. Um,
oh, really cool.
yeah. So I would just like to yeah, just applaud you and, let you know that I'm a follower, and I look forward to supporting the conversation and just continuing to encourage the light skinned Black community to, be affirmed in their version, in our version of Blackness, right? Because we're definitely authentically Black. A lot of us. I have more African blood in me than European or any other group. But I am visibly light. And I've learned I'm from New York, but I live in the South, and I've learned that it is very I'm Black in New York, but I'm not Black where I currently live, which is Georgia. So at least not Black enough. So that's been interesting. So well, we could talk about that at another time.
What? Yeah, I've been to the South a couple times, and yeah, people be really, like really dark in the South. Like if there's even a scratch of brown in your tone there, you automatically are considered light down there because people, whoo, those people are dark.
But I've had people say, like I've had people who are brown skinned say that they're considered light. And I mean, I really, I'm not a light skinned police. I don't really care, but but it's just a difference. It's a difference. But I see we have another caller, so I'll mute.
Okay, what's up, Selector Ja?
Yeah, what's up? What's up? How's everybody doing tonight? Everybody good?
Hi.
We're doing great. So, you got anything you like to say on behalf of this whole situation?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've just been listening. I'm not really from America. I'm from actually Trinidad, the islands. I mean,
Oh, well, that's
I have a lot of input in terms of the light skin perspective from my perspective, as obviously it will be different to the American perspective, right? So
Mhm.
that's
well, that's even
basically
better.
yeah, that's basically where I'm coming from. I just want to hail out all the light skin people in the chat. I see Smiles and Twisted MD saying what's up, Smiles and Twisted MD. Um, so yeah, basically, my thoughts is that as I was saying, one of the comments I had left earlier in the chat is that basically the light skinned man or the light skinned biracial man and the light skinned and biracial woman, obviously the experience is different, even though we would like to think that there should be unity and there should be this brown and beige community and stuff. Um, Basically, I think, and this from just my perspective, but as you could see, the light skinned woman, they're not trolled as much as the light skinned man, right? So therefore, they face different experiences, and their desirability is not as much affected as the light skinned man. I'm not sure if everyone else sees it that way, but maybe someone else could give some input on that. But that's just what I'm thinking. And I also think that's one of the reasons why light skinned men end up with dark skinned women, and vice versa, light skinned women end up with dark skinned men, you know?
Well, I think in a lot of cases that is true in some perspectives,
Yeah.
but it's from what I've seen, it's more gender based.
Well, that's what I'm saying as well. The the desirability of light skinned men, it gets affected through the memes and the trolling and stuff, right? We could all agree to that. But light skinned woman now is something totally different. And that's where the whole imbalance comes if you're trying to create the light skin community, if you understand what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, yeah, that's true. I agree.
So yeah. So that was basically my input and my point of view, you know. And I totally agree with you on the fact of that a lot of times in the black community, the people riot off like questionable characters being killed by the police, if you understand what I'm saying.
Wholeheartedly.
Yeah, so I agree with you on that point too. And
So
I want to
I
say
have a
shout to
question.
everyone in the chat there. Caesar Cannon, shouts to you, Daniel Taylor, all the people in the chat, respect.
You said you have a question, Asha?
Yes. So Selector Josh, since you're um checking in from Trinidad, what does
Yeah.
that colorism, what does it look like necessarily in Trinidad? Because as we know that,
Well, I'll say this, right? It's definitely not looking good for light skin and mixed men, at least not since the 90s. Because I'll say this to you, where I'm from, most of the women and most of like what is glorified in the black community is dark skinned men, and it is the thug dark skinned men. It's not the lame dark skinned men or the educated dark skinned men. It's the dark skinned men with huge gold chains. It's the dark skinned men with the Jordans and who selling drugs and stuff. So that's basically like what all the girls are going for and what all the young people look up to. If you all understand what I'm saying.
yes, I
So
do.
it's definitely not looking good for light skinned men, and for the most part, light skin and mixed men they sort of like blend into like the white community. So basically, that's the only choice of women they have and the choice of people they have to deal with.
So basically, it sounds very similar to what we're dealing with here in America, basically.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they like to call Canada the greatest imitation of the United States. So most of like what we all do across there, we sort of follow it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Hey, Smiles.
Hey everybody, how's my light skin
What's up?
community doing? I'm so happy to
Hello.
see this as an international community. This is really making my light skin heart happy right now. But I
Yeah.
wanted to bring something up. You said that this is a gender. Whoa, I'm getting a lot of feedback. I'm hearing a lot of feedback to myself. Is everybody's mics off?
Um,
Do you have one of your tabs on by chance?
Oh, hold on. Let me make sure I got that shut down. Just a second. Okay, yes, much better. Perfect. So yeah, you said it was a gender issue. However, I honestly think that that's really not true. I see that more in the dark skin community because it really doesn't benefit dark skinned men. But it's very true that light skinned men are affected by this colorism war. I was even just speaking with my brown skinned husband right now, and I asked him, being raised in Chicago, which men did you see beat up the most, getting bullied the most in high school? And he straight up said light skinned men. He even said he defended and helped light skinned men fight their fights because they were bullied so consistently. So I just want to let it be known that I'm on the team of my light skinned brothers, my light skinned sisters. We're all in this struggle together. So, yeah.
I
Yeah, I
second.
think this whole situation is really messed up for us on both sides. If we're really going to see any change, we're going to have to be on the same page.
Yeah,
Right.
I
But
would say
unlike the dark skin community where it's honestly just beneficial towards women, that's the one thing I do like about our movement is it's inclusive to the men because it affects both genders equally. So I just want to make sure we're not getting on that whole, well, it just only is benefiting one gender more than the other because that's not divisiveness that we need. We don't want to become colorism crybabies.
Oh no, most definitely no. It's yeah, we really need it to be fair. 'Cause we really don't want that situation to blow up all over again like it is now.
No,
One thing
definitely not.
I would like to get some feedback from those of you who are on the live chat about is in your experiences, for one, like, I know when we talk about, you know, being pro our race, right? We oftentimes would say that doesn't mean I hate, non-Black people, right? So in speaking about Blackness from our perspective and from our experience, right, which is definitely unique, um, we know that obviously we don't hate the greater race. We're not against the greater race, but we want our distinction and our uniqueness affirmed. So I don't. I'm prefacing this to say, do you all exclusively date or desire to date and mate people of your same complexion? And if so, and when, how has that experience differed for you when you have done so versus when you have dated someone, who has been of a darker skin, brown skin hue, non-light skin, let me just say that.
Well, I know definitely for me, as my husband being darker skinned, for me, of course, I never looked at it as a problem. Having
Right.
family that ranges from the darkest of dark to the lightest of light, even lighter than
Mhm.
me, I've never seen it as a problem. But, the funny thing is that you have to remember is that when we date someone of our own complexion, which they try to make it feel like is not our right when it is, that we're being incestuous, and they try to play that whole
Wow.
emotional manipulation card. But of course, as we
Yeah,
know,
that's
dark
it.
skinned people outnumber us 10 to 1. So I
Right.
think that kind of shows right there exactly where the hatred and the colorism is coming from, because it's
Hmm.
definitely not coming from us. And, it's so funny that you brought up, dating people of the same race, same color. I had someone made a comment the other day, and it really blew my mind because they said, well, why are you trying to say that it's wrong for people of the same race to marry? And it's like, whoa, chill. Like,
Right.
are you for real? Like, people forget that 70%, and I'm talking all races, more than 70% of people are still marrying and still, procreating within their race. So it's
Right.
like, okay, come on, you monoracials, chill the F out, calm down. We're not trying to overcome any, like, 70%. Come on, we cannot overcome and completely just, overpopulate them. That's impossible. So that's just a ridiculous emotional argument they love to make. So
Right. I also
Can I
say
give some
that
input
Yeah.
into
we.
this?
Hmm.
I just want to say that I think it really depends on like where the trends are going, because back in the 90s you think it would be more easier for a light skinned man to get with a light skinned woman. You know what I'm saying? But as the 2000s and the 2010s reach, you'll see more couples, like the desirable couple will be the dark skinned man and the light skinned woman, right?
Hmm.
And more than likely, the light skinned woman will be thinking she not fucking with light skinned men like that. So eventually,
Hmm.
light skinned men will have to get with dark skinned women, and that's just the way it goes. At least that's the way I see it. I don't know if you all see it differently.
Uh, Hello?
Yeah. Well, one thing I don't want to do is victimize light-skinned black men as though they're of like some less, more fragile,
Yeah, it has
male
nothing
shit
to do with you.
form.
It's just the trends, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand. No,
yeah,
and I thank you for that
yeah.
feedback. That's everyone has different experiences. I believe that light-skinned women, I can say I have light-skinned brothers, as I'm sure other people in the chat can say, and people with various experiences. I've experienced both extremes. Like a lot of my family is light skinned, so there's a love there, there's a connectivity there, and when I see other light skinned people in the community, I naturally feel a kinship to light skinned people. It's, of course, I've learned that that's not everyone's experience, and that's kind of what.
Um,
Can someone mute their mic because it's really loud?
I wonder if it's mine. Hold on.
Okay, I think someone,
yeah,
Mr.
I'm getting the
R.
same issue. I'm getting a lot of feedback of myself too.
No, well, it's not mine. I just muted mine and it didn't make a difference.
Mr. R, you have
Yeah,
anything
so
you
I,
would
I
like to
like what
say?
Sis had to say.
It
I,
sounds
I
like
I
somebody.
really like sorry.
Okay. Okay. Now
Okay, has everyone muted their mics?
let me try to mute the mic.
Because a lot of times when you have like a tab in the background with like your StreamYard and the YouTube tab and other, it kind of plays like an echo. Okay, so Mr. R, you joined this panel. You got anything you'd like to say?
yeah. I just want to ask, why do Black Americans hate each other based on dark skin and light skin? Like, for example, I'm light skinned myself, and my cousin 2 days ago, who's light skinned, was married to a dark skinned man, but they're from the same ethnic group. It's not an issue.
Well, it's. I don't think it's like so much that it's hate. I think in a lot of cases it just seems like there's like some people that just go out of their way just to clown like one group of people and then clown another group. In a lot of cases, I think people are just tired of like the hypocrisy that comes with it. In a lot of cases, is from like the colorism perspective, dark skinned people are constantly shaming light skinned people into acknowledging like light skinned privilege. But what they don't realize is in a lot of cases, light skinned people really don't have privilege. So now in this whole spectrum of YouTube, there's light skinned people that are starting to push back. And since we've gotten used to this whole narrative of light skinned privilege, a lot of the dark skinned people that perpetuate this lie are starting to push back from it. So I wouldn't say it's so much as more as hate, it's more like political like debates more so.
Can we really say that
I,
black people though?
Yes, but one thing I do want to say is there is definitely a dark skin privilege because they get the media protection of being able to go and kill 5-year-olds and not have their race disclosed, as where it's a crime perpetuated against dark skinned people, and it's always light skinned or Hispanic or white or whoever the race or the color differentiating from that dark skinned person may be. With that being said, getting out of the whole political propaganda sphere, I just want to say to my light skinned men, you know what? You guys, I'm all for you. You know what? You guys need to stand up. I am all in support of my light skinned brothers. You know what? You are our backbone. You are our patriarchy. The reason the black community has failed, and I'm going to say this, and I know it's an unpopular opinion, is because they implemented matriarchy. They basically disenfranchised their men, emasculated their men, and so that is why they don't have fathers for their children and are in shambles. We need to learn from the dark skinned community's mistakes. And light skinned men, need to take up their role as alphas and as leaders. So I just want to promote and I just want to, urge my light skinned brothers to do that. That's all.
I've got a question
Okay.
because I've read this for the past 13 years on the internet forum, and I don't believe this stuff is true, but I've heard stories because we've got this problem in the United Kingdom. Do you believe that dark-skinned men prey on light skin and mixed race women instead of going for their own women? Because I'm light skinned myself, I don't dislike dark skin or light skin, but I've seen it from both sides. But I've seen that dark skin.
I'd like to take that because that's something that I've more so discovered in my adulthood than any other time. There were prejudices and typical assertions here in the United States that light-skinned women or interracial women, and even so far as Spanish women, were crazy. So that was a stereotype pushed. But I've noticed with a particular group of darker skinned, brown skinned Black men, there is a belief there that light skinned women or interracial women are softer, are easier, so to speak, and it is a how do I want to say it? I want to say that it's almost like a predatorial perception that is predicated by that Black privilege, right? Because a lot of them are of the mind that Black light-skinned people are insecure about their light-skinned skin and that we want to be more of the Black community, right? They have in their mind that we feel like, we know that we don't fit in always, and we feel insecure about that, and we feel less than because of that. So as a result of that, there is that belief. And I've had to check that in darker skin or brown skin Black men, in terms of how I relate, to explain, like, this is definitely not the case. But I would say there is truth to that question. Yes, there is, and everything that I just explained comes from the very belief that we're insecure in our skin and want to be more assimilated and attached to them, so they feel like there's an advantage that they have over us, and attempt to exert their quote unquote blacker privilege over light skinned people with that belief.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just want to
and
say,
I'm not
oh, go
UK. I don't live in the United Kingdom. However, I do know three women by the names of Miss Philosophy, Jessica X, and Miranda's World that can definitely give you insight to the fact that light-skinned women are definitely preyed on in the UK by darker skinned people. Not, because I don't want to just put it on the men, but it's definitely by dark skinned people in general. So yeah, that's what I've heard.
I just want to say I think it goes with the trends and the imagery because for a long time, as I said before, the imagery is always the dark skinned man and the light skinned woman. So obviously, dark skinned men seeing that and will feel entitled to light skinned women because most of the time, I'm sure most of y'all, if you all know dark skinned men, any dark skinned men you all know, most likely they were a light skinned woman. And that shows that that is not only their preferences, but that's who they go after. And not only that too, but the fact that light-skinned women, they definitely have a bias against light-skinned men. They have a bias against their light-skinned male counterparts. They always bigging up like dark-skinned men. So I think that contributes to that as well. You know?
Absolutely. What do you think, you guys, is the solution though to us, protecting ourselves, having our own community? Because like I said, we need to have leaders. We need to have a backbone. And in my opinion, I believe it's starting with a light-skinned patriarchy. So what do you guys say about that? Agree, not agree? If so, if not, why?
Absolutely. I want to say and remind everyone, or even bring to everyone's attention, that we've had that, right? Black light-skinned people were the arbiters of Black culture at one point. Like, we were the mouthpieces. We were the empowered group, because darker skinned Black people they didn't have the courage. They didn't defend themselves. They didn't revolt. We Black light skinned people, our not Stokely Carmichael, Huey P. Newton, we have Black leaders historically who have led revolutionary protest in opposition to the white vanguard in defense of the greater Black community, right? So that has always been there. That light-skinned male patriarchal figure, unfortunately, has been warded down and has been assaulted as the rise of the 90s, and when darker skinned Black males begin to have more of a presence in media.
When the thug image started being promoted.
Correct. We saw that go down, but no, light-skinned Black men have definitely always had that patriarchal leadership that has always been there. It has been undermined, it has been threatened, and it has been assaulted by darker skinned Black men, who now have they've since had a voice, but they then want to trump the light-skinned male leadership, now that they have access and have had access from some time, and want to kind of monopolize on what the Black male is, and but missing the fact that it was light-skinned Black males that really did pave the way for darker-skinned Black males to be who they are.
Thank you.
Really,
Yes.
so
I agree.
so we see that even today in our Black leaders, quote unquote Black leadership of the Black Lives Matter movement. We have such a diversity of Black perspectives present. So you do have a more empowered Black group, which I think is a beautiful thing. I have actually always been of the mindset of hating the victimization of darker skinned Black women when it comes to colorism, and talking about colorism, and dark skinned women feeling like they're less prettier than, like, light skin, we don't have an advantage over you based on our skin tone. The only advantage we have over you is that which you give us. So we, we don't, so it's all, kind of stuff
You
that
know, it,
has merit, but it's perpetuated by that very community, and not necessarily today by society or even by an outside force other than themselves. So
and
I would,
I like how you said how, the power that they give us, because that
yes,
should show everybody right there that we have absolutely no privilege or power
we
when
don't
we're only
advance.
getting scraps that they're throwing us. Like, for example, in the modeling world, even Tyra Banks, I think, or no, was it her? Somebody else did an expose, and they were showing that it's dark skin, mainly Sudanese models who are getting
Right,
the representation that they love so much. And so
right,
if we are only getting the privilege and the power that they're allowing us, that should show right there exactly who has the true quote unquote power. But back to the whole man thing, people forget about Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was a so-called biracial, still black man,
right,
okay, in slavery, who started the abolition movement. And they completely forget about that. They completely forget that it was a light-skinned man who essentially started the movement that ended up with the Emancipation Proclamation. What they want to do is basically dark wash all of our accomplishments. Now, I'm
right,
not
But you
saying
know what?
obviously that there weren't any brown or dark skinned activists or people who, helped the Emancipation Proclamation, but it's just funny how in our educational systems that they completely blackwash this, and they just don't want to give us our props. Basically, it's a whole
right.
associated level of player haterism, essentially.
But and it's coming with a rise of more black and melanin empowerment, right? And I think that's a beautiful thing. It has pained me as a light skinned black person, at least in my earlier awakening, I'll call it, of pro-blackness and learning more about the community, that black people, the more visibly blacker people were subscribers to their own oppression, and they didn't even know it. So on one end, I'm glad and encouraged to see the empowerment and ownership that is now there, that wasn't there previously. The ownership was with the biracial, was with the lighter skinned black person, because you did not have proud black analysts on news networks talking about black issues. We just did not have that. That is something that is a new phenomenon. So with
Well, right,
that,
because our numbers are literally so small, there's 10 of them for every one of us. So absolutely. Another thing
correct.
I want to point out too is how, first off, you have to have an ideology first before it can infiltrate a person's mind and therefore start a movement. 10 years ago, I want to point something out. In 2010, when I was finishing my degree, there was an issue on basically racial issues. I was taking one of those horrid, social classes that, you have to
Mhm.
get your degree. And they were talking, and I remember I spoke up, and they divided the class literally by white people and black people, or, people of color. And of course, I was automatically put on the side of the black people. Now, here's what's funny though. Even though they divided the class, which I think to do in a college institution is sick, first off, I think now looking back, that's sick. But when it came my turn to speak, immediately dark skinned people came up and said, "Oh, well, you're black, but you're mixed, so you don't really have the right to speak fully on a black experience." And it's just like, wow, in these liberal institutions, they are pushing this divisive agenda. And so I just think it's really funny how they try to claim we have privilege, yet historically, we are always pushed to the margins. We are always pushed away. Our
Mhm.
voices are always silenced.
Mhm.
And
Would
the second
would
you say
any
something, you're called privileged.
Privilege for dark skinned people?
No, I'm saying like I know like there was this NBA player, like Steven Jackson. Well, he was not. He used to be an NBA player, but Michael Porter Jr. kind of said something that kind of went against the Black Lives Matter movement. And the first thing that dark skinned Steven Jackson said was, "Sit your privileged self down."
Yeah.
Right. And
And
who
there was another.
who was the guy that injured his knee and he talked about Jesus and he was automatically made fun of when he was injured? I completely forgot his name. And he basically denounced BLM and they dragged him. They were so vicious to this, kind
Right.
man who did nothing but speak on Jesus, his own personal beliefs, and was absolutely mauled. It's just grotesque. It's grotesque. It really is.
But to the point of what's the solution, I think platforms such as this, and the construction of these platforms and the continuation of these platforms, we have to be the teachers. I mean, we have to stand in that truth. It's kind of like when Black people are educating their white friends on these. We, in our Blackness, in our Black community, I like to say light skinned people are a minority group within the greater the greater Black community, and we are so like minority slice. We have to educate those who are willing to listen, who want to listen, who want to learn, because they definitely, absolutely still want to mate with us. They absolutely, definitely still want to befriend us, but they want to do it sometimes from an um, um, advantageous dynamic, right?
Right. Well, you
And
said
don't
the
want to
key word,
level.
and that's willing. And that's willing.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, the ideology and the indoctrination is so deep. It bears to ask the question: how many are actually willing to be taught? That's really the scary part.
would
Well, I just think it comes down to respect. And, it's like, if you, there's this perception, I think sometimes, and fellas, please feel free to weigh in, from your own perspective as well, and not just what you have observed light-skinned women endure. But there's a belief, I think, an unspoken belief that like light-skinned women are supposed to be kinder, sweeter, softer, gentler, or something. And when we're not those things, it's like something that we're just, we're just something that doesn't fit the stereotype or the frame gets
Can I speak on this
opposition.
one?
Well, I think a lot of Black manospheres and a lot of men in general will say that light skinned, biracial, etc. women are more feminine. I think it should be incumbent on every woman to want to be feminine to receive her husband's protection or gain a husband that will give
Correct.
her that protection. But however, like I was saying, the problem is we have this whole infrastructure called light skinned saviors. We got our own trying to tell us, we have our own people, telling us, well, that's not true. Wait a minute, light skin privilege is definitely real. And I'm just like, that's got to be
Right.
broken down. And what's so
um
funny is that they really think that they're gaining some kind of benefit by kissing the ass of dark skin supremacy, but in reality,
Right.
they don't know that behind closed doors they're getting laughed at and they're just being used as token to push this agenda that they're doing. That light skin bad, dark skin good, and anything else in between, well, we'll decide on you later, depending on your ideology and your thoughts. So, that's pretty much how it goes. I think the biggest obstacle in our way is definitely light skinned saviors. Please feel free to disagree, agree, but
I,
Can I jump on this one?
light skin. Go ahead, someone else.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, to your point actually, about it's basically the imagery of light skin and dark skin women. The people in the black community, they each have different images that they are trying to live up to, basically, if you understand what I'm saying. So the image of the light-skinned woman usually, and I'm not saying this is all the time, but the image of the light-skinned woman is usually the image of a bad bitch, a feminine woman, and the image of the dark-skinned woman is something different. Just like the image of the light-skinned man, they usually show him getting punked by dark-skinned men, right? We could agree to that?
Wholeheartedly. You
Right.
have anything to say about this, Mr. R?
The star seems to
Light skin men getting punked by dark skin men.
Hmm.
I'm not saying it
I
happens, but that's the imagery, especially since movies like New Jack City and other hood
I
movies.
personally have never seen that, but I did hear of stories over the years of dark light skinned women being portrayed as feminine, but dark skinned women being portrayed as ghetto and especially promiscuous. That's what
Hmm.
I've seen and heard.
Well, can I ask why do you think that is though?
Because if you watch like movies, old school 90s movies, Eddie Murphy, if you look at all these films, dark skinned woman, like let me just think of that film, Coming to America. You know, Coming to America. Eddie Murphy's in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, there's two
But
girls. There's the dark skin one and the light skin one. The light skin one is the dark skin one is seen as firstly ghetto and promiscuous. The other one is seen as feminine and light skin. Uh, and the way she talked, like there's a big difference if you watch the movie carefully. Coming to America.
Right. Well, we
yeah,
see
and that
those.
reminds me of the adage how art imitates life or does life imitate art? And I think in this
Mhm.
case, we really got to just be honest and say that in this case, art is imitating life. I mean, let's not be disingenuous. We got to be honest and think who is it that when we walk down the streets minding our own business, what skin tone of women are coming up harassing people, harassing us? I just saw a video the other day of Black Lives Matter and how this woman, dark skinned woman, went up to this couple. I don't know if you guys saw this, and she completely was in their face. Everybody's so worried about this pandemic, but was
Mhm.
like talking, spitting over their meal. And
Wow.
I see continuous
No, I
images of
agree with
this.
that.
And I do understand that, like, maybe back in the 90s, there might have been a few light women that were upheld as beautiful, but I can also name about 10 dark skinned that were as well. The point I'm
Right.
making is, it's dark skinned women that any given city, any especially democratic city on any given day, you're going to be accosted by them, not us.
Hmm.
Well, yeah,
I
But
agree with that.
uh,
Black skin
I've
women
seen
are the
that.
forefront of these
I mean,
things.
if I'm wrong, tell me.
I definitely agree because even when you look at videos of like black women acting ghetto and stuff, it's not usually light skin or mixed women. It's usually the what we call the poverty princess, where is the sort of ghetto black dark skin black woman with the colorful weaves and so on.
You
So
said this is who we usually see where?
like at the forefront of like ghetto behavior and that
Oh,
type
of
of
the
thing.
of the movement. I
Yeah.
think there you have, okay, and this kind of ties into my first question that I asked everyone on the line is just how has your experience, if you've had any, dating someone of like complexion, um, in comparison to your experience dating someone who is not your same complexion.
Oh, I
So I
apologize,
have
sis. You know what? I didn't hear that part of your sentence. I am so sorry. What is your
No,
name,
that's
sis?
okay.
I'm so sorry.
That it's Asha, and
Uh,
that's
okay.
that was my initial question. It was kind of lengthy. I was trying to preface it with so many different things, but that was the
No,
question.
no worries. I'm multitasking. I'm actually putting some food on right now, so I didn't hear the part of experiences with the same tone of men. So please forgive me, Asha. But if I could expand on that, I
Okay.
did before I was married, I did try dating a few light skinned men. And there was no
Mhm.
problem. I mean, honestly, I think it had to do with them personally, and it had nothing to do with their skin tone.
Mhm.
It didn't work out. However, they were definitely I do have to be completely 100% honest. They
Mm-hmm.
were not as aggressive
Right.
as I'm trying to word this, but you know what? I got to be
No,
completely honest.
I
I
think I
can't
understand
sugarcoat this.
exactly where you're going. I understand exactly where you're going. And
Right, right.
I was mentioning that to speak to Ja's question on to speak to the point that Ja noted and seeing more darker skinned black women kind of as the face of the defender in the movement, you know, being a police officer's space and just being out there up front and out front. So in our community, we do have this imbalance of in our male female dynamics where black women by large feel compelled to protect black men and be
But
the saviors of black men. And I
but
do
again,
see that
I think that goes back to more of a darker skinned woman thing because that's kind of the whole axiom.
that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
Now in
Okay.
my light skin dating relationships and even within my family, that is not this that's not the expectation. Like I am to know that the light skinned man is my protector. I mentioned this in the chat, and this is why light skinned men in my book at least get held to a higher standard
Well, I
because
just.
you
Mhm.
are expected to be a man regardless of what the society tells you or how you're made to feel. In fact, you get like more light-skinned men sometimes being a little bit more angry, and I'm not saying this is justifiable, but we kind of treat them a little, let me not say we just I experience light skinned men differently. But I can say that as a light skinned woman with light skinned male influences, I have a very light skinned grandfather, a light skinned father, light skinned brothers. My ex boyfriend was light skinned, and I was not their protector. I was very much so a woman.
As
These
you should be.
men, right?
I
These men are gentle giants, and I didn't experience. I didn't need to. They weren't necessarily aggressive because they didn't need to be that way toward me, or
Well,
any of the
and
other
that's
women.
uh,
and that's the axiom. You know, I think that's the interesting axiom because I have a cousin who is light skinned mixed as well. And the funny thing is, his mother was dark skinned. So he actually had more of a preference to have dark skinned women. He had two children with two different dark skinned women by the age of 19. And
Whoa.
so it's funny because the thing is, light skinned men have access to the matriarchy. Now, whether people want to agree with me or not, you know, light skinned men do have a certain privilege of being accepted into the community if they have a dark skinned woman and you know bow
Mhm.
down to the Pookie and Ray Ray lifestyle. You know, as a
for a
matter of fact,
question.
I even talked to my cousin before. Hold on, I'm almost
Right.
done. I talked to my cousin one time and I even told him, like, you know, because he was involved in a shootout. Now,
Yeah.
I said, what
Uh-oh.
are you doing? You know, I said, do you care about your life? You know, you could have gotten killed. And he's like, look, I'm light skinned. I have to be extra hard. I have to be extra crazy acting because I'm going to be viewed as soft out here just for the fact that I'm light skinned. So I think that that is a whole other paradigm all in of itself. But
Mhm.
I wanted to ask Ja, I want to know about the Caribbean because I know Rihanna
Yeah.
said that she experienced colorism and she experienced bullying being in the Caribbean. I was wanting to ask Mr. Ja, what is your take on that? Have you experienced that in your life or seen that as well?
Well, I mean, I have seen. Were you talking about the women or the men?
Both, both.
Both. Okay. Right. So more than likely, light-skinned men will be viewed as being softer, weaker, and I always say that the person who, not in terms leads the black community literally, but leads the black community in terms of imagery, is the dark skinned man. And that's because his image is connected to a thug image and being hard and tough and so on, right? Everyone following me? So now the light skinned man, which will be seen as the opposite of that, inherently, black people see something feminine in light skinned men, but they also see something feminine in light skinned women. So because they see something feminine in light skinned men, they are natural target. They think they're softer. They could never really be like the tough guy in the community. They could never really be the protector. They could never really be the person who is the aggressor towards other communities or whatever the case is, right? And in terms of the light skinned women now, because they sort of get that femininity, it could be in terms of their looks or it could be in terms of their personality, however they are interpreted. The dark skinned women now get inherent jealousy from the from light skinned women being interpreted as being more feminine, right? So dark skinned women through their jealousy will either try to take their man, take a light skinned woman's man, or
Mm.
they'll do things like the typical cut their hair in preschool and these type of things. So
Mm-hmm.
there is a degree of the dark skinned people attacking lighter skinned people, but it's for different reasons across gender lines. With the men is because the men perceive feminine, and with the women is because the women perceive feminine and jealousy reasons and so on. Everybody following me?
Yes.
Yes.
Now,
So
And there's way more less light skinned women in the Caribbean. My grandmother is a dark brown, she was a dark brown Haitian woman, rest in peace.
right.
But she even said there was way less light skinned people in the Caribbean.
Of
And that's
course,
true, right?
of
But isn't
course,
the
because
Caribbean mixed?
Right,
people from the
right.
Caribbean came from Africa after slavery. So most of
No,
the
like I'm
people,
saying is you got like Trinidad and Guyana, which is very, very mixed, and some of the
right,
French
mhm,
speaking ones that are mixed,
right.
except
Right.
for
Well, most of the people are either African or Indian. That's what's
right.
happening. And the people within the African community, of course, there'll be like people just like in the States and stuff. And of course, like some people will be outcast and then have to fit into white communities or other races of people and so on and so on. And that's basically what's happening.
but
And you
are
know, it's so
people
interesting because in the Caribbean, from what I've heard, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but they say that colorism isn't as big of an issue over there because they are more or less unified in the fact that they just look at each other as all black. You know, I really honestly think that this colorism divide is something that,
Right?
dark skinned women from Africa came over, and this has been proven time and time again by Light Skin Love, by Anon and Light Skin Motivation, and Bella Pink and other channels, that it's been African women that are gaslighting American dark skinned women and kind of using them as the puppets to get this, movement and hatred against us going. So, I just think it's interesting how it's so different in the Caribbean. I would love to just take about 2 months and just vacation. Like I need a break from America for real right now. But anyway, that's beyond the point. But
so
I think
would
actually more within recent times that the whole colorism issue has become something of more of an issue, especially in terms of American imagery reaching the Caribbean. So therefore, like the dark skin men now will be the popular guys, and the guys who will get all the women, and the light skinned men will be the guys sort of in the back, kind of getting these strays and stuff, getting the dregs, if you want to put it that way. And like people in Trinidad, especially the men, they go crazy for lighter skinned women, but not necessarily light skinned black women or mixed women. They'll go crazy for like other races, like a lot of Venezuelan women will come across to Trinidad. That's like what you call Spanish women, and
Okay.
they go crazy for like Eurocentric features and stuff. But the colorism definitely is here, especially in terms of light skinned men being left behind now.
I'd like to I'd like to
Yes.
say, and host Beige and Brown, I'm going to digress and bring it back to you, because I know you probably want to address a lot of people in the comments. As it pertains to light-skinned people in this conversation of colorism, it's really diverse, and it does obviously have multiple perspectives. But light-skinned people, I think our current plight is how much ownership of Blackness do we get to have as light-skinned people. And I do see people in the chat wanting to make the distinction that biracial and light skin are not the same, and they're two different communities, and so forth and so on. And I'll let someone else speak to that. But
All right. Okay.
Really?
What?
Are we though? I mean, are
not
we though?
really.
I mean, there's.
Not really. there's a difference, but there's not a difference.
Okay.
Right, because
okay,
I've seen a lot of light-skinned women who are getting their asses beat.
Okay, so here's my perspective on that. Yeah, there may need to be distinctions, but here's one thing that people leave out of this conversation. And I'm sure this is something that a lot of people have noticed. But even in the case of dark-skinned people, universally, even though we've said this before, there's a lot of dark-skinned people in the American media that aren't exactly American. And that's a conversation for another day. But in a lot of cases, dark-skinned people, regardless of how they feel, they view that person as dark-skinned. So they universally have a dark-skinned code. Even if they're not American, they say, that's my phenotype. And that is what's represented. But why is it with light-skinned people? Is she mixed? Is she fully black? Is she that? Is she that? It should be. There should be a universal light-skin code. If you see your image, you should be happy, regardless of who it is.
Right. I echo that.
One question: Would any
I agree.
would
I
any
agree
of you?
I agree
No,
with
I
that.
think that's a conversation that's needed to be had, because, like I said, it's a lot of these African dark-skinned women that are gaslighting American dark-skinned women and starting. This is a very relevant conversation.
Please, can you expound on that a little bit? Because I'm seeing that there is a popular YouTuber who, at least if your commentary is along the same lines I'm thinking it is, who is Nigerian, and she really pandered, let me not say panders, but she speaks exclusively about Black American, like something that is like more historically a conversation piece for Black American women. And though she is Nigerian American, I'm not trying to police her content, but I think that she speaks like she's almost she's like being a voice for a community that she herself is not really, that she really
Yes,
herself is
absolutely.
a observer
Tony,
of, and not necessarily a
And
member
and I
of.
would like to expound on that if I could. And that's exactly what's going on. I could name multiple channels where it's Nigerian, it's Ugandan. There are many African channels where dark-skinned women, because of the fact they don't have the diversity of Black people that they do here in America, I'm just going to put it out there. They are jealous. They are hateful. Look at what they do to light-skinned people in Africa. Look at what they do to albinos in Africa. They are mutilating them. They are literally cannibalizing light-skinned people. They would call biracial people colored. They want to bring that same racism and they want to bring that same racial divide to America as they do in Africa. Because the reason why you ask that is because if you look at South America, they have apartheid for white people going on right now. So it's about control. It's completely about power. It's completely about having totalitarianism. And so that is why these African women and people are pushing so hard and gaslighting dark skinned Americans because they're playing on their emotions of skin color. They're playing on their insecurities.
Wow.
We already
Wow.
know. We already look. I don't have any hate for anyone
I
whatsoever,
thought that I
despite
was
what
the
people might tell
only
you.
person who noted that. I was like, am I the single soul on YouTube who notices this? And I I'm glad to know that I'm not alone in observing that, because I'm
Oh
just
no, honey,
like,
you are definitely not alone. No, you are not alone at all. You know, I could sing a whole Michael Jackson song. You are not alone about that. You are definitely not alone.
oh my
No, babe,
gosh.
you are not alone. This is
Okay.
truth. And this is the thing that they want to hide. They want to hide the fact that they want their agenda infiltrated into America. They want to erase light skinned women. This is why I don't know if you guys heard. Did you guys see how they were like losing their minds and foaming at the mouth when Lisa Ray got a philanthropic award for her endeavors in Africa? I don't know if you guys saw that, but I know
I
that
think I heard about that.
that Willie Pete, that crazed Willie Pete dude. I don't.
Oh
He's
yeah,
just
yeah.
he's crazed. He went psychotic and did an hour and a half. He spoke 90 minutes on this situation and how light skinned women have privilege because the image of a light
Wow.
skinned woman having a crown put on her head by dark skinned women. Now, mind you, dark skinned women is what, like 90 some percent in Africa? But they were so bothered by Lisa Ray having a crown put on her head that they are building this whole narrative with absolutely zero truth behind it. Zero.
Wow.
Okay.
You
I
And not only
just,
that, but look at what they did to Doja Cat. They tried to completely ruin this woman's career who did nothing, who is half
right.
African, half South African herself, because of the fact
Mhm.
that she, in their opinion, did not uplift her African roots.
And she's
Because
not
she had a
obligated to
number
do
one
that.
hit.
She's not obligated to do that. And that's the thing.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. We should all definitely weigh in here, is that just because we're part or majority African, but we have a phenotype that is not necessarily African, it's like 100% African, we're not obligated to the uplifting of a group that attempts to, in some instances, in some populations and areas and communities, ostracize otherness.
Yes,
Um,
it is. Yes, it is. And this is backed by history. Now, when it was back during the 30s and 40s, and Nazis were telling Aryan people in Germany, in France, and everywhere that if you had Aryan blood, you must identify as an Aryan. Well, what do we call that? Well, that was obviously genocide, as they were wanting to rid everything that was not pure. What we're going through right now is we're going through a new age genocide of light skinned people. And that is, if we don't claim, see, the funny thing is, they never started this until, mixed people, especially, but light skinned people, mixed people started saying, hey, we got something in ourselves. Now, the axiom and the paradigm being that every single brown skinned chick and even dark skinned chicks want to claim that they're mixed, though, but that's a whole nother conversation.
yes, yes, it is.
so what's your solution?
So it's like you can't have it one way or the other. You can't have your eggs fried and scrambled at the same time,
Right,
boo boo. No, no,
exactly.
no. It's like they want what we have so bad, but yet want to shame us for just telling the truth of who we are. So
Okay, Mr. R, do you have anything you'd like to chime in on this subject?
Yeah, what is your solution? Do you think light-skinned people should just separate themselves completely and intermarry amongst themselves, or there should be a dialogue between dark-skinned and light-skinned people?
Well, as much as I would like to see that happen, I believe we're too late in the game. I really don't think anything is going to change really with this whole situation. I think we're
Because
just beating a dead horse here.
because
Right.
I don't understand, why don't dark-skinned men don't want to date dark-skinned women? Because I'm attracted to dark-skinned women. I've seen a lot of attractive ones, but the dark-skinned men do not want the dark-skinned women, but they want the light-skinned women.
Now, Mr. R, I have to interject, are you light skinned yourself?
No, I'm light skinned,
You're dark
but I
skinned.
have a, but I have a,
And
no,
see
I'm light
you
skinned.
and see that is exactly what I was talking about. Is a lot of light skinned men, and first off, it's completely up to whoever you want to date. I could care less
Right.
who you want to date, marry, procreate with, but this is exactly what I'm talking about with light skinned men. They have an opportunity and privilege to be in the dark skinned community without getting the bullyment because they have, I'm just going to be blunt, they have their penis privilege. So I'm just calling it as it is. They get to be in that community without having any bullying, harassment if they have that dark skinned female protection. Now, I just want to point something out to you guys. There was a petition that was being signed for biracial people to have their completely own governmental category and protection. Now, here's why they did not think. You would think as much as black skinned and dark skinned people are screaming that we're not black, you would think they'd be the first ones rushing to sign the petition so we could have our own. Now, here's why they won't. And it's really simple because we would have our own identity, and with that own identity comes benefits and privileges. We would
Right.
have our own financial basis, we would have our own social infrastructure, we would have the
Right.
ability of being able to claim minority status, which we should, as our numbers are literally a minority, and we would be
Right.
able to be incumbent upon that. And they don't want that because that will take away their dark skin supremacy. That will take away their ability to initially quash us in what we're doing in life, which is what they're doing. It's a
I
mental
don't.
trap. I look at, yeah, you know,
Well, this is where I'm going to counter at least that point of black dark skin supremacy. They're literally supreme only to the extent of their population and number and size to what we know of light skin. Like, and I don't even think, because this is so new, I don't even, and we're talking about these differences like on a platform like YouTube. I don't even think that there's been a poll, like where there's actual percentage of like light skin, or mixed biracial, a specific percentage of us within this group. Like I don't have any frame of data to pull from to point to we are this percent represented in the Black community.
no, and I
Outside of,
understand what you're saying. Oh,
mhm.
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. But outside of that, there is literally no supremacy in this Black group. There is not much monopolization of any industry. Really, there is not. I am wholeheartedly for the designation of biracial, light skinned, triracial, whatever you want to coin it. I'm all about dignifying each group of people. It's only Black people that want to latch on to other people or that want to claim other people, who don't necessarily want to be like, and I am a Black woman, let me say that. I've said it at the beginning, I have more African blood in me than I do anything else, right? So I'm definitely Black, right? And I have two Black light-skinned parents. But what the issue persists in there is their supremacy of just an oppressed mindset. And they even speak about it among themselves. It's even spoken about amongst themselves, like the self-hating, the Black people wanting to be everything else and wanting to claim everyone else. Like, be okay and be comfortable with standing in your authentic Black self, whether that means
Yes.
you have two African parents who are literally from the continent of Africa and you've migrated somewhere else, or you are African American and most of your lineage in the States is of more African descent than anything else. Like, claim that, stay there, be content with that, and progress within that space. You don't have to become this multiracial conglomerate to feel like you need to advance. So,
And I completely agree. But can I give you examples of why I use the term dark skin supremacy? Because there's very specific reasons why I say that. And here's why. Because there's a movement right now called BLM. Okay. Now,
hmm
there have been multiple light skinned people, one of their names being Talia Kelly, who was shot by by a dark skinned person because they didn't know whose side that she was on. Okay. So
Yeah, I've
that
heard of that.
is a privilege. That is supremacy. Now, if you go and you stand next to a dark skinned woman and
hmm
both of you are saying that your lives matter, what they're going to do is they're going to pull this little trick, which they always do. This is another bad little trick out of the bag of emotional manipulations, is they will claim that because you are lighter and have a so-called proximity to white, quote unquote, that you have a privilege and therefore their life is so much more oppressed and so much more in danger than yours, when statistically it is actually proven the other way around. There was actually a huge issue about a month ago. It actually got Anon and Light Skin Motivations channel put down because they broadcasted a fight where a light-skinned woman and her light-skinned son were brutally beaten by two women and their adolescent child. Now, that adolescent child kicked this light-skinned little boy so hard in the head that
Oh my God.
he has to have permanent neurological medical upkeep for probably, the rest of his life, poor baby.
Damn.
So I say
Oh,
that to
wow.
say this is that they don't point this out though. There have been multiple male YouTube channels who don't point out this disparage. They don't point out the difference in the
Wow.
fact that this woman and her son were light skinned. The media has the privilege, they have media protection privilege. Again, a dark skinned man killed a white boy and got away without even having his race disclosed. Okay. Now, if you, on the other hand, were to go and defend yourself, for instance, and if you were bullied by three dark skinned women, and the only way you had to defend yourself was I don't want to get this channel shut down, but you guys know what I'm talking about, use methods of protection, and it
Mhm.
resulted in their lives ending, you would be called a colorist. And you know what I'm saying? You would be called a light skinned supremacist.
Yeah.
So I go off of facts, I go off of numbers. It is absolutely incumbent that we protect our lives because it is our lives that are being taken. We don't have the privilege of even being able to protect ourselves without getting called colorist or racist. So that is why I use the term dark skin supremacy. Black Lives
Okay.
Matter, if you look at their manifesto, it clearly states they only uplift Black trans women and Black women and children that they choose. But we have seen multiple Black people, both light and dark, getting killed by Black Lives Matter, and they don't even care. They don't even make the news.
But you know what?
But especially,
Oh, my
go
mistake.
ahead.
But you know what? That just ties into what this whole stream was about. Because I got the names of actually 17, it looks like 16 light skinned people that have been killed at the hands of both the black, mostly the black, but the white community as well.
Hmm.
I wish I could
Well,
post like
let's. I have if you guys want, I can send a link, but FBI 2018 crime stat statistics show that over 90, I think it's 95%, somewhere around there, of Black murders are caused by other Black people. Now,
Right.
they don't have the exact statistics for light skin murders, which again begs to ask the question, why not? What are they trying to hide? If you're trying to hide what is going on to us, that's a privilege. When they're not being shown as, the villains, when they're not being shown as the perpetrators, when you can take our lives and not have consequences for it, that's a privilege to me. I don't know about you guys, but that's a privilege.
that. And I'm
Um,
glad you brought that up because from what I've seen, calculating the stats, the vast majority of light skinned women that, if we want to be technical, they get killed seem to be from dark skinned men. We
Right.
want to be honest.
yes.
Yes.
It's
Mm.
Well,
actually
I won't
equal.
say
It's
that.
actually equal. Dark skinned women and dark skinned men both. I think it's pretty equal. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on it, but I think it's pretty equal. But that's just the whole point. Do you ever hear CNN? Do you ever hear MSNBC? Do you ever hear Fox, even for example, talking about our debts, talking about intra-racism? There is a term called intra-racism for a reason,
Mm.
because it shows that the biggest violence being perpetuated is violence within our own race.
Right. But I do
And they
not think, and
don't
I
want to
think
talk
that's
about it.
where uh, conversations, content creators um, of light-skinned people come in and be able to continue to give that perspective and give those facts. Um, I I I absolutely am appalled by the story you just shared of the light skinned boy being beaten. Did you say it was a mother son duo that had beaten this
Yeah,
boy?
the two women were beating the woman as she was holding her 3-year-old son, and the adolescent son of the two dark-skinned women beating her did a roundhouse, literally a roundhouse Street Fighter kick to this 3-year-old boy's head, and he now
Oh my
suffers
god!
permanent psychological damage because of it. So again, like I said,
Oh
why
my
is this
And
goodness!
not
we
being
don't even
covered?
know his name.
Why are they not talking about this? Why do they
Right.
not talk about intra-racism? If Black Lives mattered, if Black lives truly mattered, why do not all shades of Black Lives matter? And that should dismantle it, right? Oh shit.
Wow.
Well, that this just
Man,
goes
the
back
devil
to the
was a
whole.
lie. I was getting too hot.
The black community is just not going to talk about stuff like the black community exists as basically a monolith. You either agree with the status quo or you're gone. That's just what we've gotten to at this point. And as you can see with that troll, there's actually my channel has been getting flooded with trolls a lot. Like there's this guy right now that's been spamming all my videos talking about how I'm dividing the black community. At this
And
point,
I hate that rhetoric. I so hate that rhetoric. And for anybody who's attempting to watch or who will watch at some point once this live ends, attempting to do a reactionary video, just don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. These reactionary videos, I did see a lengthy, I think it was a 4-part video that someone had did in response to your channel, and pretty much just trying to undermine the entire cause for why it even exists. And I'm just saying now to anyone who's going to look and scroll, don't waste your time with a reactionary video.
Well, what's your opinion on interracial marriage? Like, who's more likely to marry out, a dark skin or light skin person? Because in the United Kingdom, in the adverts, they always put like a dark skinned woman with a white guy, or a dark skinned guy with a white woman, but never a light skin.
Mm,
well,
I
yeah,
think, all right, go ahead.
I would say it's mostly dark skinned people that seem to be the main ones that
right.
interracially date henceforth. But from what I've seen, I'm starting to see like light skinned people are starting to interracially date a little bit more.
Right.
I think it might be because of this. Maybe light skinned people are getting tired of this whole black community thing. I could be wrong, but
I agree with that point.
Absolutely.
Because think about it. If light skinned men are not getting accepted by no women in the black community, they're not accepted by dark skinned and light skinned women, then the only option is to date interracially. And that's why you see a lot of light skinned men dating white women, dating Indian women, and so on, because those women are less discriminatory against light skinned men. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm. Yes, I do.
Sorry
Um,
guys, my phone died. By the way, I apologize for cutting off so abruptly like that, but
oh,
I
okay.
got so into it I didn't even realize my phone died. But yeah, my thing is, I am not going to support a movement who doesn't even value my life. And I think it would be wise and incumbent upon anyone to not support a movement where they're saying that your life doesn't matter because you're, in their eyes, a certain proximity to white. That's the definition of racism. That's the definition of colorism.
Mm.
Yeah. But back to my point, what Mr. I was asking about the interracial dating and stuff. I mean, I think a lot
Sorry
of
about that.
light skinned men and stuff date out in terms of not dating black people. Because when you think about it, when last you hear that like a white woman saying she don't date light skinned men, or if you heard an Asian woman saying she don't date light skinned men. So I think that's one of the reasons why you'll see like light skinned men dating outside of the black community. I'm not sure if you all have any feedback on that.
I don't see many light skinned men. Well, actually, interesting enough, I did see for the first time in a very, very long time a light skinned man with a Caucasian woman. And I understand it. I have someone ask, like, right, Galaxy, you don't support the swirl. I don't know if she was referring to the other female caller on live, but I absolutely understand that today. Previously, in prior years, I didn't get it. I thought interracial dating really was driven by a lot of self-denial and self-hatred when I saw it between Black people and non-Black people. But today, I absolutely do get it. I absolutely do get it. You are seeing more, well, I'm seeing a lot of interracial dating across cultures, even within, we really shouldn't call it interracial dating when it's two Black people, but nationalities are big distinctions as well as ethnicities. So you take a Caribbean and American, that's always been a thing, but I that's more interracial, but it still kind of goes along the lines of like difference to me. But we see that more so with I see more brown skin and darker skinned Black men more prone to date and marry Caribbean darker skinned Black women versus American darker skinned Black women. And then the opposite is the case where Caribbean men love dark skinned, or even light skinned American Black women. So
Have you seen, I'm just curious, have you seen the dark skinned women who attack Oprah's show Black Love when it happens to be a female who is light skinned, the spouse is light skinned, but they never say anything when it's a light skinned man and a darker woman? I just want to know if anybody has noticed
wait a
that.
minute, what was the question?
Oh, no, it really wasn't a question. I was just pointing out that there's a show that Oprah does called Black Love,
Yes.
and that there's a lot of bloggers who have a problem when the wife is of a lighter complexion, and they never have a problem when it's the husband who is lighter than the wife. I'm just pointing that out.
You know what? That is very problematic. First of all, that's a thing to me. It really is a thing. I'm not necessarily against anyone dating who they want to date, but when I see that there is just an overwhelming preference, it seems, or expectation that light-skinned men are to want darker skinned women, that is very problematic to me. I encourage self-love and I encourage wholeness, and I stand on that. And I know that anything, whether you're dark, whether you're light, it is healthy, it is good, and it is whole to be attracted to something or someone who more closely resembles who you are as a person and even who you are phonetically. I get opposites attract and all of that, but it's always, there's always something there when there's an imbalance, right? because it's like, okay, no one's knocking Black love in the various hues it expresses itself in, but do not hate on Aisha and Steph Curry. Like that is true. That is genuine. That is a
Thank you.
wholesome
Oh,
situation,
trust me, they do not like that. They hate it.
and they have
I
got to
think
get
they don't
over
care.
because
I don't
even
think. I think they're unbothered. I really think the Currys are unbothered
they
as
are
hell,
so
but that's just my
unbothered. They
opinion.
are, as they should be, because they're just being blessed and excelling, no matter what. And I'm so grateful for them because I believe that that is a model couple. That is a
Yes,
model marriage. It's so interesting to see Black men troll Aisha Curry or make comments on social media against Steph
because
Curry
she didn't
because
pick
of
him.
how free she is as a woman and as a wife, and they
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
some sort of negative to Steph Curry, and that's just a whole situation,
And
and it's beautiful.
and
So
black men really need, and light-skinned black men really need to look at what they were saying about Aisha and Steph's son, calling him an old. Now, mind this: this is a brand new born baby. This is a new life in this world, and they were calling him an old white man. They were calling him a white baby from the Caucasus Mountains. They were saying any all this hateful, disgusting, racist rhetoric. Now, you have to remember you always have to do the reverse test. Now, if we were to say some kind of stuff like that about dark skinned people, about, oh my gosh, they look like, use a bunch of racial epithets, etc., from the mud huts of
yeah,
Africa, do you know what a
Cancel.
problem it would be? Do you know how quick somebody would be canceled if they talked about a brand new dark skinned born baby? Come on now.
Cancel.
And see,
but
this is
but
my
I
problem.
think people, I think, you know what? I don't. I'm of the heart and mind that I don't think necessarily there's a double standard, and I don't think we as light skinned people should really subscribe to the fact that there is a double standard, because really historically it has been light skinned people who have said nasty things to dark skinned people about
Wait,
their
wait, wait,
life.
wait, wait. I want to get a better understanding because, for one, there is a double standard if we're being killed in a climate that's saying Black Lives Matter, but yet
No,
light
that's
skin
that's
lives don't
very
matter.
no. That's in a
No, no,
different
no.
context,
I
and I
understand that. I'm
understand.
trying to get a better understanding of your perspective. I want to
Okay.
know what you're saying exactly. You made a comment that light skinned people have been saying nasty things, or did I mishear you?
No, I did say that. In terms of the mudslinging, I'm not necessarily speaking on the fact of the fact that
Can I just interject
our,
here? I think what it is that it was dark skinned people actually bad talking dark skinned people because when you talk to a lot of dark skinned men and you ask them what was their experience and stuff, they will tell you that it's actually dark skinned women who used to call them names and stuff in preschool. And I think it's actually a dark skin hate that going on. But
Mhm.
a lot of people might see it differently because I don't really think because they don't really see or hear, for
I'm not
example.
I'm not saying Ja. I'm not saying to Ja or you, sis, that this is something that we currently do. I'm just saying that historically there has been the perception that light-skinned people would be the one calling uh, or saying nasty things about darker skin hued
and
um,
and and and,
people,
and that's where
and
I
vice
gotta
versa.
wait. That's not true. That is not true because if you go back and look at the light skinned biracial massacres of 1911 to 1913, which occurred in Louisiana and Texas, there were over 43 massacres of strictly light skinned biracial people and their counterparts. There were some dark skinned, some even white people that were killed being connected to dark skinned people. Now, these dark skinned women were practicing voodoo. And not only did they get away with this, remember 1911, we were in the middle of hot Jim Crow, and they got away
Yeah.
with this. And
Wow.
every single day, I see people calling light skinned women half Neanderthals, especially if they're biracial. We get called pasty. We get called pale. We get told that the sun hates us. We, as a matter of fact, I have been told by one channel specifically. Her name was Sydney Black. She's the dark skinned girl with blue eyes. She
Okay.
said that all light skinned people were recessive, that their genetics are recessive and weak.
Hold
Now,
on, wait,
again,
wait.
if we were to say that about dark skinned people, they would be canceling us. They would be wanting our deaths. They would
Did
be
Sydney
wanting our
Black
deaths.
say it herself, or did somebody on her channel say
No,
it?
she said it herself. She said it in her video, and she even put it in text in her comment section. She said, because I questioned her, I said, "Are you really saying that we're inferior?" Because believe me, coming from a medical professional, that is not true. We all have melanin, it's just different colors. Our melanocytes produce different colors based on our ancestors' need for different climatal protection. She did say we were all that light people were inferior. She didn't even say light skinned black people. She said light skinned people, lighter people. Mind you, this woman is married to a very light skinned Korean man or Japanese, yeah, Korean man, I believe. So she's basically hating on her own children she might have someday. This is not new. Crystal Karazin, the queen of swirling, she has been caught telling Chrissy that she does not let her mother compliment her light-skinned daughter as much as she does her full black dark-skinned daughters she had with her first husband. So no, there is definitely a double standard. There is a double standard, and it's not right. And we did not start it. And I'm not going to let light-skinned people take the brunt and the responsibility for that.
Okay.
Okay, but here,
That's new to me. But
hey,
point well noted.
okay, now see, this is where this whole argument. Now, what I'm about to say might, I don't know, y'all might not take this the wrong way, but this right here is one of the reasons why I say that I'm really not really a fan of these whole light skin, dark skin relationships. Because the way I see it, I have a very unique perspective on this. We deserve to have our image uplifted to the best it can be. And to be honest with you guys, it's really not going to happen if we're part of the black community. This
I
dynamic
agree.
of light and dark is going to continue to take place as long as we're all part of it. Like
But you know who prevented us from having our own? We tried to have our own community. We tried to get our own affiliation, and it was dark-skinned people who did not go and place their vote in that petition. They did not sign that petition. If they wanted us to be on our own so bad, as they keep saying that we're not black, remember, they keep saying we are not black. So if that is the case, you would think they'd be the first ones to want to exile us. And I agree 1000%. We do need to have our own, but we're only a minority. Our vote is not going to be enough. So do you see how that shows the double standard of how they don't want us to be a part of this, but yet they do when it's convenient?
No, that's very clear to me, but I was just speaking on the ability to pretty much fight and defend ourselves without being villainized for it, because I don't to me it's like, okay, isn't it the expectation that light-skinned people would fight back, and if anything, a dark-skinned person would be made to look bad, for perpetrating. I'm not aware of the massacre, so if you can include that in the private chat, because I would love to research that, as I'm sure others would as well, because that is very much so a nuance in this reality.
Yes, and I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. I love everybody's individual perspective. I respect everyone's individual perspective. I do get passionate when it comes to stuff like this because I've maybe been researching this a lot longer than other people have. And I see the facts and the statistics and the reality of what's going on. when I see tons and tons of videos like DJ Envy's wife, Gia, for example. I don't know if you guys have heard her story, how she just went into a McDonald's, literally said nothing, minding her own business, and had her face slashed. And it took years and years and laser surgery for that scar, to get taken care of. We would just really have to be critically thinking. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm, bashing them or telling them what
No.
to think.
Mm-mm.
I'm just presenting the facts. Well, no,
No,
I
no,
get
no.
villainized a lot. I get trolled and villainized a lot. And the thing is, it's sad that I have to keep stating that I love all people, especially, my Black people, my light-skinned people. But here's the thing, dark-skinned people have made this what it is. I used to be pro-Black, believe it or not. I used to be pro-Black.
Same
But I
here.
had to,
I understand.
yeah,
until
sis.
I absolutely I noticed that, wait a minute, they're not even observing me as one of them.
Right,
Like,
thank you.
I began seeing that, and I'm like, wait, I am Black. Like, I am legitimately a Black person, but
Right, which
by virtue of
again,
my skin tone, I'm not treated as such.
right, that's the whole problematic. That's the whole problem, is we're not being treated human, which is exactly what white supremacists did to us back in the day. They are taking upon the master's ways. They are taking upon the white skin supremacy, and they are turning it into, and that's why I call it dark skin supremacy. I'm not doing this to be inflammatory. I'm not doing this to sound cute. I'm not doing this to get a reaction. I'm saying this because if you look at their actions based on white supremacy, it's identical. It is totally and
I'm
completely
learning that.
identical. Everybody
Wow.
is capable of hate. And right now, you're having Black lives uplifted on basketball courts. But if you go and stand next to a dark-skinned woman, her life will mean more than yours and mine. And that is racism. If you are closer proximity in their eyes to white, they're going to hate you. How is that different, except going the opposite way?
There's this new
hate.
term that dark-skinned Black women love to throw around to, I like to think, disqualify lighter-skinned Black women, and that's this
really? What's that?
racially
I've never heard it.
ambiguous.
Oh,
She's
God, I hate
racially
that.
ambiguous. Those who are more racially ambiguous, and
I hate that term. I hate that term because it's such a backhanded. It's such a backhanded quote unquote term because
is.
They're trying to make the fact that we are racially mixed a bad thing, or racially ambiguous. They might as well just come out and say with a stank face on it, "Oh, we just don't like you because you have what we got."
Exactly.
But they want to. But every single Black person, but every single dark-skinned woman, every single brown-skinned woman I see go around, and the first thing she'll do is talk about her Native or Spanish or Asian ancestry. Nicki Minaj, an example. I digress.
John, you want to defend that? No.
Was that? I missed that for a second. Yeah, Nicki Minaj is actually from Trinidad as well.
Yes. That's why I plugged you. But no, you're and since I did not get your name, what is your tag?
My real name?
No, not you, Josh.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, I just go by Smiles. You can call me Smiles.
Okay, Smiles. You're absolutely right. What baffles me in beige and brown community, you definitely can speak to this as well. What is bothersome to me is that there's this belief amongst the darker skinned Black people that you have to, in order for your platform or your elevation to stand, you have to deny or undignify that of another who is Black. And it's just, it's not frustrating to me, but it's like,
oh, it is.
It's
to
one
me.
of those things that perpetuate colorism, and it's one of those things that say, see, this is what makes that victim mentality stand for you all, the darker skin, browner skin, Black community who wants to hate or visualize light-skinned people because there's this perceived advantage that we have over them based on our skin complexion.
Oh, and another thing that is completely going to blow your mind. Now, check this out. They also want to sit here and play the whole game that white supremacists used to in saying that hate is not equal. They want to say that it's okay to justify their hate against us because of the fact of history and slavery and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as an excuse why it's acceptable to hate us for our lighter skin by using stupid ass terms like reverse colorism and reverse racism. No. Ain't no such thing. Because if it was the reverse, because if it was the reverse of racism or if it was the reverse of colorism, guess what? It wouldn't be happening. They don't even know how to use words. They don't know the definition of words. Like, it's completely stupid. They're telling us that their lives mean more than ours by saying that they don't have ability to hate, which we all know is not true.
Right.
That ties
here
into the whole black people aren't racist talking point.
Right.
And I think, and I've always thought that was so fallacious because you are human. You are human at the end of the day. So do not, you know, there's this belief. I agree, and I share the bafflement with that, because they're very much so capable of being, if not more, hateful and racist.
No, you said it right. You said it exactly right. They are more hateful now than, you know, they're just as hateful and believe it or not, murderous as white supremacists were during slavery times. This is what it is.
Listen, this is my resolve. And a lot of people in the chat have said, you know, they've canceled the Black community in so many words, like despite being Black. And it's hilarious, but, you know, virtual high fives and kudos to those of you all who have met this resolve, and this is and smiles for you and your research. I'm sure you've probably read some of Zora Neale Hurston's work, and then her most recent published work, where she talks about where she documents the story of the last survived enslaved person who survived the transit, like the Middle Passage, and it's Barracoon. But anyway, we know Africans set the slave trade in motion, so to speak, right? That it was Africans who betrayed and displaced other Africans and ravaged their own villages and sold.
Speak, preach. Thank you. Oh, they're going to shut you down, girl. They're going to shut you down. You're speaking that truth.
No,
thank you, baby. They're going to shut you down.
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm just playing.
That's the truth. I've gone back to that to explain, to really just explain why the community still is in shambles in many respects and has an issue with elevation. When people like to talk about, we can never come together as Black people. Like, this is the best place for light-skinned Black people to get to, or mixed people to get to recognize that Black issues, African issues run deep. Okay? Run deep, okay? Before you even hit whatever place you were dispersed to, you know, their stuff African shit runs deep. And you have a people that have had this unrest and this brokenness happen within their own group, race. And as a people, like, have just not been able to advance. So with that, I feel like Black unity, the closest we will, and God rest his soul, we will ever get to it is Black Panther, the movie. That is
Yeah,
the
man.
closest
Chadwick
thing.
Boseman. Oh, rest in peace
Yes,
to Chadwick. That was
rest
so
his soul.
saddening. But
That is
here's
the
the
closest
biggest
thing we
bomb
will get
drop.
to it.
Here's the biggest thing, though, and ultimately, this is what their racism, their hatred, their colorism is going to do and unravel from the inside out. In a nutshell, this is what it's going to do. First, they're isolating light-skinned people. Then, ultimately, they're going to isolate the safe browns or the more, not quite dark but not quite light complexions. Um, then, what's going to happen is by default, we're automatically going to go to a place of neutrality because we're not going to fight if there is a race war for
Mhm.
people who were once upon a time oppressors, but we're not going to fight for a new slave master either. We're not going to fight for
Right.
new oppressors either. So here's
There
the
we
problem,
go.
though. The Black community, and that is including, they do include still to this day, I don't know if you guys knew this, but biracials and light skins in the census, we actually have about 15, 16% of the country. People don't want to talk
Wow.
about that, though. Again, whites, blacks,
Mm.
they don't want to talk about that. But once they isolate us, if there should ever be a war that breaks out, we still have to remember what the majority of this country is. And we have to remember it's going to be a very dark, scary day. That if, God forbid, and I pray every day this does not happen. I pray to God that the riots stop. I pray every day that Black people get their minds together. And here's why. Because if white people and their constituents decide to push back, they're going to have more than 70% of the country on their side. And it's going to be a total annihilation. And it is not going to be pretty. They are acting in rebellion to their own detriment. And that is the scary part. See, they want to talk about, me speaking on hatred. They want to talk about this as hatred. No, I'm saying this to get them to wake the F up because
Right, right.
this is all to their own detriment. There is
They
no
will
end
miss
result.
the mark
There's
again, turning inward and hating another version of themselves. They will
yes.
simply, if we are to learn from our mistakes and our community, we are really to learn from the mistakes of our ancestors and and the past and what history has taught us. And even Native Americans, they met their fate when they allowed themselves to be infiltrated, divided and conquered. So when some, fought in the Revolutionary War against the preference of those natives that wanted to, fight against, the Europeans that did come, instead of siding with them, they had their land and their territory stripped from them and were, authorized to pretty much just wander and die off.
And
And they
that's
still
interesting
are to
that you
this day.
Right.
yeah.
So African people, same thing. If people, if you can be divided and you will be conquered and you will not rise as a people.
And
So
here's the interesting thing about that is, the only people who have never taken invasion as an act of war, if you go and look at any country's set of bylaws, what happened is back during the 1400s, the Arabs and then eventually, of course, the Europeans in the 1600s did what was called invasion. Now,
mhm.
any in the Middle East, in any country, in China, in anywhere around the world, invasion is an act of war. That's just like if you come into my house
Right.
and you're unannounced, I'm shooting you. I'm shooting to kill. I
That's
don't
right.
care. And
Right.
because you're obviously not coming onto my territory for anything good. You did not just
Mhm.
bust into my house to give
That's
me
right.
a Christmas call. No, 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 no.
Right.
You didn't do that. But what blacks did is they took these Arabs and these Europes and said, hey, I will kidnap. They did implement their soldiers to go and kidnap, beat, and enslave their own people for the trade of guns and gold and other goods. And they don't want to
Spoons,
talk about that.
silverware, knives, utensils.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, trinkets.
Things that
And so,
exactly
yeah, and
ignorant.
so if anybody owes black people reparations, it's
It's black
Africa.
people. It's Africa. You're correct.
And you know what? It's funny you bring that up because there's actually a hidden story in history. I'm sure you guys have all heard about Black Wall Street.
Yes. The 1930,
Oh, yeah.
1940
Why is that
Tulsa
not back
race
up again?
riot. Yes.
Well,
I, I,
there's a story like from the early 1900s. There was like a group of African Americans that went to Africa and basically established a Black Wall Street ish kind of community. And the Africans just completely destroyed it. It was like a complete massacre. And it's
Mm.
funny how that whole situation has just been tucked away in the archives of history just
Wait,
for the
this is,
sake of
did
African
you, wait,
Wakandianness.
can you give me that reference one more time? Where was this located?
Liberia, to be exact.
Liberia. Okay.
wow.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Wow.
Africa at any time, what they could have done is when they saw these, and some did, I'm not going to lie and say that all of them didn't, and some did
Right.
kill these Arabs. But what they wouldn't have done is these West African, the Ivory Coast,
Right.
Ghana, Togo, and I think it's Togos. There's a lot of Mali, lots of countries. Mali, as a matter of fact, who had King, oh my God, Mansa Musa, the richest man on the planet. Do you know they don't even want to talk about the fact that Mansa Musa had black slaves himself? You know, it's just it's
Right, because
ridiculous. It's
slavery was
propaganda.
a system. Slavery existed already in Africa. It wasn't Europeanized. It wasn't a westernized concept, but
Thank
it was
you,
more
thank you.
so a servitude, so to speak, in Africa.
Right,
They
and
didn't.
don't and don't you think that if this was such an incumbent issue on them, don't you think they would have taken up arms and killed and banded and put together soldiers to kill these invading white people, these invading Euros, these invading Arabs? So instead of selling their own people, no, they worked with these Arab invaders. They worked with and traded with these Euro invaders. So I
Yeah.
think at any time, they could have declared war and killed them all off and protected their own people.
Wow.
At any time.
That's something else that you won't hear about in history. That Africans were the one that sold Black Americans into the whole slavery thing. But once again, it contradicts the whole Wakandian narrative that a lot of these pro-wax perpetuate.
Well, you got to figure they're getting their ideology from a fake movie. So, I mean, just that fact alone is a little disturbing and shows their lack of critical thinking. But I digress.
Correct. It's really hard for me to until you get your own house in order. Someone else will always run it for you and run it to the advantage of themselves or their kind. So what we're
Please say
facing
that
here,
again. Please say that again for the people in the back.
that until we get our own house in order, we will always be subject to the government of someone else running it for the advantage of themselves and their own people.
Amen.
So Black people have a long way to go. The light-skinned community within that group of people, we obviously have our options, and we don't have to concede to the stupidity, the generational stupidity, the curse, if you will, for some of you who understand and know. We don't have to. We literally do not have to. And we shouldn't, and we should consistently keep platforms like this.
Well, and here is truly the two saddest points. And you know what? You are absolutely right, my dear. You are 1,000% right. And the two things that kind of tie into that I want to bring up is one, they're not even helping their own populations. there are more than 2,000 Black abortions committed daily. Daily. So just try to wrap your mind around in a year how many babies, how many Black people are getting killed daily within a year by via abortion. Again, political agenda that was set by Margaret Sanger, Hillary Clinton's best friend back in the 1930s. For y'all that don't know, Margaret Sanger was a Democratic liberal white woman. Again, the liberals were the party of slavery, who was she had an affiliation called the Women of the Ku Klux Klan. And she created a ideology called eugenics. And she was very adamant about making sure that lower income Black women did not abort their babies. And Malcolm X has talked about this.
Is the founder of Planned Parenthood?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That was the founder of Planned Parenthood. Her whole ideal was to annihilate Black people. And yet we still have, 80% Black people voting Democratic. But like I said, I digress. But what's funny is history repeats themselves. History repeats itself. We still have Black people who back in the day sold their own out for a profit, didn't care, killed their own for a profit and for some trinkets, didn't care. And now we have history repeating itself. And if one thing that has been preached by every philosopher of every country, every nation, every race, is that if you don't learn from history, you will repeat it. And now we have, once again, Black people killing themselves, annihilating their own population. If we stopped abortion today, if abortion literally stopped today, do you know how much higher the Black population would be?
Oh, I know. That said, Africa is like not a part of world trade. Africa is in a state of, and yes, there are industrialized parts of Africa. We know. The continent, all of itself, is not just a cesspool of perpetual poverty. I get it. But Africa is not a world player the way that it really should be. And it's a result of what it brought on itself and what it did to its own people.
Because the problem is when you worship a culture, and I'm not trying to preach religion on here, but when you worship a culture more than you value human life, you're always going to have problems. You got these women going around, like I said when I was talking earlier, if you don't think dark supremacy is a thing, look at all these women going around and even making songs about melanin popping, melanin, yes, and all of this. And it was funny because one of my girls, her handle by YouTube is called Yellin' and Poppin'. I actually bought a Yellin' and Poppin' shirt, not because I believe that that light skin is superior. I don't think light skin is superior. I don't think that I'm better because I have light skin, but I did it to kind of make a tongue in cheek. Okay, well, they're going to uplift their melanin. Well, why can't we talk about our light skin melanin then, But
exactly.
But anyway, they're worshiping culture instead of putting lives first. They're putting culture and worshiping themselves with this Jezebel spirit instead of looking at what's going on in plain sight. They're not talking about all these murders that are going on that are never broadcasted on the news in their own community. Chicago, Kenosha, Minneapolis.
You see it continuing because it's something that's in a people. It is in a people.
It's in their spirits. It's a spirit.
Yes,
it's an evil spirit.
Exactly. And for that, I believe we have come to this place for such a time as this. Black light-skinned people, Black biracial mixed race people, to gather the facts, gather where we are in our society and where we have been, and determine for yourself how you're going to continue to identify yourself, and then how you're even going to continue to build the communities that you want to engage in, involve in going forward for your family, or even just for yourself. Um,
Yeah, it's definitely time to start really thinking about where we're about to align ourselves in the coming years.
And Brown and Beige said it best. We need to divest. And the first step is by speaking out. And the second step is by making sure that we don't just go to change.org, not putting down anyone that's done that. Please let it be known. I applaud anyone that takes step to make change. We need to go to Washington, D.C. We must go before the Senate and provide proof. That is why I do research, because unless we divest, we're going to be killed off. That's just pure and simple. We're going to be eradicated. Our image is going to be eradicated. This is a lot more serious than people think. And, it's really funny. I had this troll try to accuse me of uplifting light skin. Well, and then she went then on the other hand, and you see how demonic these people are. Then she tried to go and say that the civil rights movement was by the Illuminati and tried to say that the civil rights.
and
Now,
it's
this
just
is a dark.
confusion. It's confusion
Uh,
at its root. It's
almost
Like,
as
do you see
confusion.
how
crazy as that
crazy that
troll.
is? This woman tried to say, this very dark-skinned woman tried to say that civil rights was evil. Like, these people are not mentally sane. I'm serious. I'm not being funny. These people are mentally ill.
Right. And years
And
of trauma and enslavement, you have a lot of people who are newly empowered to not talk about anything but nothing. It's like you have, and we see this in the protest population a lot. You have people who are out there with sound reason. They're coming out to protest, reasonable hours, and then you have those who are out there to be destructive, because it's just I think it's just a misuse of a newly found power. That's the only way I can say it.
and that's very true. They're getting off on this. This is more powerful than a drug. I forgot which philosopher said it. But even in the movie The Devil's Advocate, even Al Pacino, who was playing the devil, said, vanity, the ultimate opiate. Pride is the ultimate opiate. It's better than it's literally better than drugs.
Better than drugs.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing. I mean, that's what happened when white people were in it. It doesn't matter who is in a position of hateful ideology of wanting to exalt themselves above anybody else. I don't care who does it. It's wrong no matter corrupt is corrupt, no matter which colored hands it's put in.
It's so correct. So correct. I just think that we are really at a good place in this century. Because before, didn't light-skinned people believe it was their job to be the vanguard for Black progress? Like, didn't, and some of that was.
Some still do, honestly.
Well, then we have platforms like yours that encourage divestment. And then what I would purport for myself, the piece that I'm working on, what's in a skin, otherness. I'm all for light-skinned people embracing their version of Blackness. It is different, and it does represent something different.
And it's really funny because the thing is, I've actually seen another YouTuber tell a light-skinned pro-Black, a biracial pro-Black. Again, I'm not going to name any names because I'm not giving free. I'm not giving free promotion. But but I remember hearing a dark-skinned male YouTuber telling a light-skinned biracial pro-Black that she needed to use her quote unquote whiteness to be like a white people whisperer, so more or less. And I just remember thinking that's got to be the dumbest shit I have ever heard in my life. Just because people have white in them doesn't mean they have any connection to white whatsoever. Like I said, my cousin, his father is white, but he never knew him a day in his life. He could walk by him at the next grocery store and wouldn't even know this white man if they walked by each other. So,
And you know
I know
what?
that's a
And
whole
The
other
same with G. Lowry.
I'm sorry?
The same with G. Lowry.
Yeah, I love G. Exactly. And that's the same thing. And you know what? We don't have any power when it comes to influencing anything or anybody. And that's pure and simple. But, I'm not going to be part of a sinking ship. I'm jumping
That's
ship.
right.
I don't know about
That's
y'all.
right.
Oh, this ship
But
is already sank. We're getting the lifeboats ready now.
yeah. And the way that we divest, and I know a lot of people aren't going to want to hear this, but I really don't care. The way that we are going to divest is get on our we must get on our conservative, not conservative shit, excuse me, but our entrepreneurship. We must get on our entrepreneurship
Right.
and start our own. We must learn how to farm. We must learn agriculture and horticulture to make our own. We must learn how to defend ourselves. We must learn how to be leaders of our own society. And essentially we have to get our money up. We have to get our money up and know how to lead a civil society. And the way you do that is by having one, protection, two, finances, and three, a infrastructure. I'm all for a light street light street, a light skin Black Wall Street. I'm all for that.
Yeah, and once we get it going, then you have to make sure that you know who doesn't break in and destroy it like they did last time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what white people aren't on that like they used to be. White people ain't gonna do that, and if they do, I got the same heat for them that I would anybody else. Like I said a long time ago, these hands and my protection do not discriminate. I don't care. If anybody, I don't care if you're white, I don't care if you're black, yellow with orange spots. If you try to tread, that's why I'm a libertarian. If you try to tread on me or mine, you're going to get put down. I don't care who you are. But people got to take this baby steps. We have to get in baby steps of how to implement this light skin society where we can be safe. And the three foundations of that are protection, finances, and agriculture in a way to feed ourselves. And so that's got to be the first steps of what we start with.
And resources too, buildings, infrastructure, manifesting like some kind of mechanics like AI and stuff.
Yep. Absolutely. That's why I encourage everybody to get a financial consultant and invest in IRAs, invest in bonds, invest in stock, invest in whatever is going to make you money. I know G has spoken on this, and I think Kirikusaki spoke on this as well. I'm trying to think who else spoke on this, but yes, we need to learn. And this is another thing that Black people don't do. We don't manage our money and our resources well. We just don't.
No, not at all, honestly. Well, you got to realize a lot of these people rather have the game and the swag more than actual resources and stuff. They rather spend their money on like $500 jeans.
Yeah. Yeah. Nicka treatments.
Yeah, they gotta look good for the next person. But to be honest with you, I really don't know what you can really say about them at this point. Like they've taken that whole victim thing and they just ran with it. A lot of
Well,
them probably wouldn't even want like establish like a money system. They rather just sit and wait for these invisible reparations to drop whenever that happens.
yep. Well, and that's because they don't have any other card to play. They don't have any real oppression to point out and speak of. That's why they're pressing on this whole police brutality thing so hard. Again, when the numbers do not back what they're saying, you cannot call it a movement. You know, there it's a fantasy, and unfortunately, they have the privilege of the media backing them. So you're setting up this fake reality, gaslighting an already unfounded paranoia that they had. So that's why we have all of this anarchy, and that is being perpetuated by a greater evil of the globalist elite. Um, I'm not going to expound on that any further because you already know what happened to Nick Cannon when he spoke on certain people. So yeah, not not going to talk on that. But you know, that's why I was saying we have to learn how to be capitalist. And that's the one thing that Black people are taught to hate. We are taught to hate capitalism. But if you think about it, the Jacksons were capitalists. There are so many Black capitalists. You know, hell, Black people founded capitalism. Back in the day, that was the only way you could get anywhere being Black is by being capitalist. So I just think it's so backwards that all of these liberal ideologies are destroying families and stopping Black true progressiveness when they're just buying into these white liberal ideologies that are completely destroying them.
And you know what? I'm very glad you brought that up because where I live is full of these black liberal types. And a lot of times, it really, honestly, you really, at this point, G. Lowry said it best. You just got to get away from these Negroes because the very, very vast majority of them have been completely overcame by the whole liberal mindset. And honestly, you can't really stop them. They're like I said, you either conform or you're out. That's really what we got into.
Well,
Well,
yeah, we have to capitalize or we're going to be out. That, you know, that's what capitalizing is, you know, and the thing that's so funny is even the whole gangster lifestyle, the whole drug lifestyle, that, you know, it's not good capitalism, but it's still capitalism nonetheless. You are going and you are accruing money by off of someone's need. That's the basic of business. And that is what I implore every Black person to do, especially us light skins, is we need a basic business class. First two rules of business is supply and demand. If there is a supply out there, you profit from giving into the demand. And that is the very basis. That is the base. That is like the bread and butter of capitalism. And
but
ain't
you know
nothing
what?
wrong with it.
Because we don't have Black people who are mainly and a lot of times in the employer seat, right? The gatekeeper to anything that is really non-Black. I don't think necessarily our socioeconomic uh, status or progression really suffers by just choosing to identify as other, you know, or to even say I'm light skinned, you know, or you know what, biracial, whatever, to divest, you know, and whatever that looks like to individuals. I don't necessarily. I think how it is going to best look for us is by having having those sections, right, where we get to mark off or designate our identity as not Blackness, you know, or designate our complexion. If that helps, I may not be explaining it as clear as I'd like
No,
to.
I completely understand you, hun. I completely understand you, and I hear what you're saying. And yes, you do make a good point. We do need to not identify as solely Black. But honestly, identity at this point is really not relevant, I want to say at this point, as much as our actions are of making sure, again, that we're capitalizing and we're making sure that we get those gains so that we can, again, gain protection, money for
Right.
ammo, protection, fencing, housing, whatever that might be, and horticulture, agriculture, making sure that we are able to have farm life, clean meats, animals,
Right.
clean vegetables, clean fruits. I mean, me and my
Right.
husband, we're already talking about investing in somewhere, somewhere. I'm not going to say where, but investing in a farm with multiple animals, multiple crops.
Would you
So just in,
summarize to just say self-sufficient? And I think
oh,
being in this
yes, absolutely.
pandemic,
Yes.
that is exactly what I think. I know at least I've been able to extract more than anything, just the importance of self-sufficiency. Because
Well, that's
what
what capitalism is. Capitalism,
right,
by
right,
definition, is self efficiency and self providing. And the funny
correct.
thing, and this is why I don't care who doesn't like it, but they call liberalism the plantation because they want you dependent on the government. And when you were talking
Right.
earlier about Black people not being in management positions, what I find so funny is this. And this is why I don't know if you heard, but in California, they're trying to actually push now in the Senate and in major corporations having one Black person or more, and then in the next year or two having at least three. So basically, they don't care about your qualifications; they only care about what color you are, regardless if you're good for the job or not. But anyway,
They're wanting
um,
to do what?
oh, in California, in the Senate seats, they want to see diversity. They're playing the diversity card. So
Hmm.
they want there
They're
to
selling
be,
seats to the highest minority bidder, pretty much.
So
yeah, exactly. But like I was saying about capitalism, yes, self-sufficiency and making sure that we are able to be in a position to take care of ourselves is first and foremost. And I think a light skin, I really do think a light skin, oh, excuse me, I yawned. But just having, another light skin Wall Street is key.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
yeah, you definitely need to take up farming, agriculture, maybe even like some kind of like landscaping of some sort. Maybe even laying down like I forgot what they call it, like building houses and stuff. It just left my mind for a second.
Construction and architecture. But I got
Oh
Construction.
yeah,
you.
architecture.
I
Yeah.
got you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I say this all the time. I really implore light skinned men to go out there. And I think one of the biggest trades to have is construction and
Mhm.
architecture. Knowing how to build is the biggest skill that you can have.
And
Knowing
maybe
how to
even
build is knowing how to protect. It's being able to not just protect, but then also reproduce. You're building generational wealth for your families,
Right.
for what you represent.
At a later time, I'd love to talk more so about even more so what divestment looks like for us socially,
Mm, yes.
and how that's going to look and how we instruct maybe even our children, um, and the idea that we might be, you know the idea that we would have to speak to maybe encouraging our offspring to date, mate, commune with those who are of like complexion and skin tone. um I like to share. I'd like to have that discussion in some variation. uh,
I can give a preface to it. We don't have to have a full discussion, but I can give you the keys to starting that. First, it is, teaching our children and homeschooling them and not polluting them with the liberal public
Okay.
mindset and
Yeah, I was
toxicity.
just about to say that.
Okay.
And teaching fundamentals of life, like learning gender studies and all
Right.
these other social liberal constructs is not going to get you any money in life. Literally, the only thing it'll get you is a teaching job that maybe gets you, oh, I don't know, 30 to 70,000 a year. And you, what, have 6 years of school and $100,000 worth of student loan debt you have to pay back? That doesn't sound smart to me. But anyway,
Teaches you how to be
um,
compliant in a world that doesn't have a backbone anymore.
yeah, pretty much. That's why, again, self-sufficiency is key. And,
Right.
capitalism is key. And the second part of not only teaching our future generations to do better is also making sure that we also don't, do segregation again. Obviously, we're
Right.
not gonna be like the colorism crybabies and do the paper bag test in reverse, where if you're lighter than a paper bag, you're not
Of
welcome, or
course.
if you're darker than a
Right.
paper bag. No, no, no. Here's the thing. Anybody that wants to buy my products, I do not discriminate against any money. And that is the stupidest thing anyone in business can do, because all money is green, no matter what hands it comes from.
Right? True.
Whew.
At the end of the day,
Another piece to that is environmentally, how we live, right? So speaking to farming, and even that goes hand in hand with property ownership, land ownership, obviously. But in the interim, for those living in communities of mixed use development with a diverse population, what does divestment look like for those? Are we encouraging those minority blacks? That's what will call light skinned mixed race, biracial people at this point, minority blacks, to get out of communities that are not conducive to their well-being, socioeconomically as well as sociopolitically. You don't keep your communities clean, you don't keep your environment clean, you're not cognitively aware that how you pollute your streets is connected to your environmental well-being.
especially considering the fact that if you go to most black neighborhoods, practically most, if not all, the streets are covered in like snack wrappers. And now, recently, they've been throwing out used medical masks out in the open now.
Those are just ideas for that I like us to that would be nice to be spoken to, right? For the everyday person who's come to these revelations about where they stand in their version of blackness, and what their distance from that community, the greater black community, might look like.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm probably having stream for that in the coming future as well.
So it's just been really real. Smiles and Beige and Brown community. This is, of course, a channel I will continue to follow and support, like, click, and subscribe, and occasionally participate, as I did kind of unexpectedly today. And the conversation has just been really rich. It's been really good. I look forward to sharing my own content with this group as it develops. And I'm going to sign out now. But I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the resolve, the historical data and references that Smiles you have given. Thank you so much. I will be researching a lot of the different references that you mentioned. So I'm going to sign out now, and I just leave with peace, blessings, and encouragement to my light-skinned brothers and sisters.
Oh, thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely. Have a good evening.
Okay. Well, I think on that note, I think I'll probably close this stream down. But it's been nice talking to y'all. And don't worry, we're definitely about to have more of these streams down the line. We're about to start talking about this stuff a lot more because the end game is getting close. But on that note, you guys, thanks for joining the stream. And stay tuned because there's a lot more content coming soon.